Derivatives trading involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for all investors. Past performance is not necessarily indicative of future results.
So stressful. When the world's on fire. Good God. I can't look at this, guys. Like, my strategy is you buy it and you hope that you got a good spot. Yeah, but we all think you're crazy. You don't fight this. No way. The markets are freaking out and you don't think that anything is wrong? Come back tomorrow and I'll lose it all. Should be fun. Last time on Non-Farms Payroll Reports. Oh, actually, I don't have it up. What did happen last time? What did happen last time, folks? It was so bad. I remember that. Oh man, last time we were looking for a reading of. No, that's not what the number that I want. That's the average hourly earnings. I don't want that. Non-farm employment change. That's right. That's what it was. Yes, we were looking for a reading of negative 22,000 and we got like negative 20,000. Anyways, no. That was the one before that. We were looking for, that's right. We were looking for a reading of negative 7 million and we got a positive reading of 2 million. That's right. Oh my gosh. And then we had a crazy trend day. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ooh, if this non-farms payroll report ends up really over or underperforming the expectations, then this one could just trend all day too. Maybe not. Here's the thing: we had kind of underperformed volatility yesterday, so the market is starting to chill out. If we get another good report, and we are expecting a positive number this time, looking for 3 million, positive 3 million. Okay, so if it's a good number, we'll certainly go up. I don't think that it will be a trend day, but volatility could get killed. Like we're at a spot where the volatility could just like sputter out, which could actually be a really bad thing because then we just go sideways and it could be very frustrating for us. If it's bad, then we have to rethink that whole thing. So, and that could really push us down. So, I would like to go through and try and predict what will actually happen. But, oh man, when we look at the other data that we have and things like that, we don't really have a whole lot to work with. So this number is just going to be a big surprise. Like I said, the consensus number is 3 million with continuing jobless claims at 19 million, but it's probably not going to be anywhere close to that. So let's look at the overnight action. Like I said, yesterday, even though we did have a good move up, we underperformed volatility in the regular session. Overnight, we did finally go up there and get it to 23. Now we're at 27. Having an okay bull run overnight. Treasuries, they took a pretty good dive yesterday and then came back. Yeah, pretty quiet. But again, we keep seeing this like dip and then buy back, which is really frustrating in the bonds. But oil volatile day, but kind of a wash in the end. And gold gave up all of its gains. Like that move up to 1800 looked like super impressive, and then like what do you know, down. So this is where I say again, like on a longer term perspective, gold seems to be working out, but scalping it day to day is like ugh. And sometimes when it's fallen, it's not moving when you want it to. It's just not. It's a big mess. Currencies. We come over here, you can see, so there's the gold getting killed again. But the big thing I want you to note is that the dollar index down below 97 again. And that is even without a huge move in the euro. So, yeah, some dollar weakness coming off, which is good for risk overall, right? When the dollar is weak, tends to move our risk assets up in value anyways. So, good deal. How are you guys doing? I hope you have some plans for the 4th of July. Even though I know that everything's still like under quarantine. Oh, it's whew. It's going to be interesting to see how people react. Here in Utah, I think everybody's just going to do fireworks, but there's like no parades. What's the 4th of July without parades? Now, another thing I should note, E-mini pretty quiet at the moment. So they are not doing anything. Okay, well, I am going to switch this over to my experiment account. We'll try a YOLO trade here when the news hits. Oh, a good little move down there. You can see the liquidity is completely pulled. Oh, man. Okay, so there was a good little push. Russia's Norilsk Nickel says expects to receive assessment on damages caused by the fuel leak in the Arctic in a month. Okay, I don't think that's what it was that just caused that.
Uzi Knesset says, well, there's BLM riots and pride parades. We're allowed to do those.
I know, right? You can tell this market is just ready to go nuts. 5 seconds. Ooh, feels tense. All right, it's up. That was probably a bad pick, but okay. Okay, I'm getting 48. I'm getting a 4,800 as above the consensus expectation of 3,000. Continuing claims is slightly higher than expected at 19,290,000 versus an expectation of 19 million. Average weekly hours is in line with expectations at 34.5. It's funny that my economics releases thing is not giving me the number. Also, trade balance negative 54.6 billion versus an expected 53.2 billion estimate. Okay, so this goes back to what I was saying before. It's a positive number. It's not like insane like it was last time, but it's a positive number. I think we can probably let this ride a little bit because when I come and look at where we can go and all of that, I think that there's definitely some more upside available, like certainly to 45, 50 area, probably even 55 area. But we're gonna have to see what's in the report. We're gonna have to dig a little bit, there's gonna be deep pullbacks on this thing too. Well, it looks like the Treasuries handled it okay. I mean, down. They were at 31, but we're still like at levels that we were at yesterday, 27. Let's see here. Some other numbers. Average hourly earnings 5. Year over year 5 versus 5.3. Month over month it was negative 1.2 versus 1.7. That's worse than expected, but that's actually like what you want. That's good because that means that more low wage earners are coming back into the market.
Uzi Knesset says she's trying.
Oh yeah. Look at her bush. And they gave him a pretty good pullback there before pushing up to a new high. I'm still thinking in the 50s. It might take them a while to do it though. Kind of when you put it all in context with, especially with what was happening yesterday, where we kind of underperformed and actually sold towards the end of the day. Um, they were a little weak, like they wanted to buy, but there was some bad headlines coming in, and they would push through it anyways. But because of that, they we kind of created a weak structure underneath of the
Uzi
market.
Knesset says 20 tick range on this 5 meters bar in ZB.
Now that we've got another good payroll report come through, that really gives them a legitimate reason to push up to where they want it to go. I don't know if we can do like a trend day, because I think that above 3,200 or so would be kind of where I start to be like, but just based on volatility alone, we should expect to get to 3,150. Look, it's out now. Somebody is putting the pressure on those bonds at 25 half. At that, I think you could take that one as she goes at 25 half. Let's see. Oh, there's a little stack at 25. Are they gonna attack that? And maybe not. Maybe that's maybe that one's not was not such a good idea, but it hasn't ticked against you yet. It's a nice thing about a trade like that, though, is that if you had hit into 25 half, you could just hit out right now if that stack at 25 scared you, right? That's the way that you want it as she goes to work. When it doesn't work is when it goes 25 half and then it goes bid again, and now you're like, oh, I have to scratch it for -1. But as it is right now, risk-free trade, right? Okay, now I'm so the 5-year is a little reluctant. Okay, there's the 5-year goes. Not stacking huge. Okay, there you go. And now they attack the 25. This is not the best action for my interest rate, folks. Spotify is planning on becoming a competitor for YouTube. That excites me very much. Okay, so it looks like we're going to get another bit of a downturn pullback here. Which is actually probably an okay area to just add some more. Maybe not yet, but we'll see.
Uzi Knesset says yo any competitor could destroy YouTube, all it has to do is not kowtow to wokeness.
Right? Now, I don't think that YouTube is as bad as some places, but it's definitely turned into like I just hate that one of the things that made YouTube popular in the first place was that you could get content that you couldn't get anywhere else, and now everything's become sterilized. It's like the internet's just not as fun anymore. Ooh.
Uzi Knesset says YouTube trying to be TV. Problem is, TV died for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. So people didn't feel that what they were getting was genuine. Well, let's see what they say. In the audio streaming market, Spotify is one of the top dogs, and like any top dog, the company wants a bigger bone. Sources close to the company told us that the service is gunning to integrate video streaming features into its platform with a clear goal in mind, surpassing YouTube. Spotify seems to have its sights set on the users that frequent YouTube, with more than 375 million spent on podcast companies since the beginning of the year. Not to mention
HEXMAN
Joe
says
Rogan deal.
€2.29 from HEXMAN.
Ooh.
Wasp Seth.
Oh, hey, Hex, man, how's it going? Is that thing still going on? So I had a couple of people in the past like month come in and were like, no, that Hex stuff is a scam. But I don't know. How was Bitcoin doing today? I don't think that is right. I don't think I had to roll over yesterday, and I guess I didn't save the workspace. There we go. Okay, so they're in 92. Based on what we've been seeing, I think that Bitcoin is likely to go to the other side of this range, but let's see if it'll let us change that back to a volume chart, because it just didn't. There was a point at which it just wasn't working very well. 90 days. Can we do that? Yeah, excellent. There you can see. Does look like that people are maybe building some positions to try and take it to the other side of this range in Bitcoin, but we'll see. Anyways, thanks for the donation. I really appreciate it. And I was kind of wondering where you've been, man, because it's been like a month. We've been having fun. We've been having fun over here. Okay, well, we had a pretty good downturn, and I was saying, oh, maybe you could buy that one. It was like almost exactly as I said that it kind of started popping back up. I don't know. So looking at the cumulative delta over here, you can see down at the bottom of the screen, bottom center, it's just kind of a good, solid move up, kind of evening out. Good 6,000 contracts up. It's not bad. How many contracts are we trading now here up at the top? Not a ton. So I'm not seeing any reason that this can't continue. Treasuries. Well, we were saying maybe you could take it as she goes at 25.5, and there was the 25 they took. They haven't really hit into 24.5. I guess on that one, okay read on the level 2, but of course the risk reward and everything else here doesn't necessarily make sense. And a little bit of spreading just came in there in the 10-year. We should check also here on our daily charts, on our spread. Yeah. So I'm noticing that here in June, we've been getting a little bit of flattening on the short end of the curve. Okay, this move down actually steepens the 2 and 10. Considerably so. Actually steeper across the board. Why is that? Mohammed El Arain, a notably stronger monthly jobs report relative to consensus expectations, slightly weaker weekly jobless claims, an increase to 4.8 million in June, and jobs created. The unemployment rate fell to 11.1%. Trump tweet praising June jobs report imminent, says zero hedge. Probably. He's joking around, but I think you probably get a good. Brannigan Barrett retweeting something, Steve Switzerland, that was some non-farms payroll number, and hope you're still writing this lovely SPX move. We are approaching the first targets around 3153 to 60, ahead of 3190. That said, this chart says what D strategy needs to be going into quarter three and beyond. Big quarterly gains historically see continued growth. Okay, well. So that was a little bit better of a pullback. To be honest, I would not be surprised if they pulled all the way back to 31.34. Also, if they push up to 31.49.50, I bet you that there's going to be a bit of profit taking. Because that's S2. Because another thing to be aware of is later today we will get coronavirus case counts. Yesterday we weren't getting them when we normally would, but they weren't good overall. So I guess I should manage this, right? No, more people calling for the removal of Mount Rushmore. I don't think that'll ever happen. Okay. Well, we should go back to this Spotify story. So that's interesting.
Sunday Driver says hello. When does the meteor strike the Earth and put us all out of our misery?
Oh, I don't think that happens until for another 3 seasons, right? Like, why would the network do something like that when we've got like the election coming up and all that sort of stuff, you know? Then the meteor just comes in and that's the end of the series. I don't think they would do that. So it's interesting when they gave Joe Rogan that big deal, they were doing it with the intention of doing video podcasting. But it's also seems that the intention is to have this can still be focused on podcasts, perhaps. They also acquired Gimlet, Anchor, Bill Simmons, The Ringer. Spotify is going for more curated content. Podcasts are just the first step, according to our source, with more varied content coming soon to the streaming service. With strategic investments being made into the development, The Ringer, the new ESPN, Bill Simmons' ability to provide quality reporting and entertainment, the move to video is a calculated
Sunday
step.
Driver says Spotify will regret that Rogan contract. I like Rogan, but he's not worth it.
Yeah, I think he's worth it. Spotify is aiming to provide curated quality video content that will hopefully attract other creators to the platform. Podcasting is not just a hobby. Blah 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 blah. Right now, YouTube has problems from the way it handles community of creators to the general way outsiders see the platform. Spotify, on the other hand, doesn't have a problem with their brand image, and if they play their cards right, they might just become the new king of podcast streamers. As our source stated, both platforms offer similar pricing and offer background play. The only difference is that Spotify has a discount for students. In order for, the issue number one is in order for Spotify to really take YouTube out and that kind of a thing, they're going to have to come to parity in features and stuff, which is difficult. And I think it wouldn't just have to be just video, but it would also have to be live streaming video, because live streaming video is going to be the largest growth segment. We're just in infancy for live streaming, right? It would be nice. I mean, there's some things about YouTube, and if there was another platform that I could live stream to that gave me better visibility, I'd be totally all in it. Okay, BLS. The number of permanent job losers continued to rise, increasing by 588,000 to 2.9 million in June. Permanent job losers. So we're getting a good thing here. I'm very much starting to see a scenario play out here in I think people call it uh, the square root recovery, right? Where we had a dip, we have a strong recovery, and then it goes flat. And that's what I see right now is like today, there's every reason to buy it because this report was good and the positioning and everything else. And we've got a weekend. I think that we've got a good setup for us to move up a little bit more, probably into the 50-60 range. But
HEXMAN says you can receive tips on Facebook with Star.
oh yeah. But in the long run, there are a lot of jobs that are just gone and aren't coming back anytime soon and are going to hamper a longer term recovery. And furthermore, based on all of the statements that we're seeing from the banks and things like that, it seems that they believe that more liquidity is required, even though the Federal Reserve has backed off. And it may be the case that at some point they need to,
Sunday Driver says Tesla over $1,200.
we need to have some sort of a crazy pullback because otherwise they won't be able to put the liquidity into the system and we'll have some problems later on down the line. That's a lot of weird things. Okay, Forex Live pointing out that the dollar is little changed after the strong jobs report. Good observation. I'm also noting that gold didn't really change. Now, the Treasuries, they made their initial move down, and they haven't really gone extended either, but they're all just kind of like up here and going sideways. And I think that eventually this could end up being a measured move. Scott Adams says out there putting on a How to Talk to Trolls 101 clinic. Take notes. Cliff Blazinski says
Gary Rich says, man, you guys don't get it.
Says to Scott Adams says, you're an idiot. And Scott Adams says, my dog has no idea how the lights come on every time I enter a room. She thinks I'm an idiot. To Cliff Blazinski, did you guys know Cliff Blazinski was the lead game design developer over at Epic Games and basically created Fortnite, was his baby. Well, the Fortnite was his baby, and then after he left, they turned it into Save the World and made it the popular thing that it is. But all the gun gameplay and the base mechanics was all him. Interesting. And it's just, man, if you're a well-known person, why would you denigrate yourself on Twitter with such a dumb reply? Gary says we don't get it. You know what? I don't think I do. When I was reading this article yesterday on Zero Hedge, talking about J.P. Morgan and some of the analysis that J.P. Morgan was doing, and they were pointing out, as other banks had, that another like $1 trillion in liquidity was really required, which it just sounds so shocking to me. But it sounds like that this continues to go up, and then at some point later we have some sort of a, repo crisis type problem again. Then there's still some like resistance above us, right? Like we go sideways and then everybody starts getting diced up, and there's some problems with that. But in the short term, um, I think that this news today could have a lasting positive impact on the markets because the volatility index is going to get killed. Does anybody know what it is right now? Because I bet you that it opens like 1 or 2 points lower. So like 20, we were like at 29 yesterday, so we could be like 28, 27, 26, right? And it's probably
Gary
just
Rich
gonna,
says the Fed is going to expand their balance sheet to 10 trillion.
yeah, they're gonna keep buying it. Well, here's the problem: is like, how do you come in after this record bull run and inject more money? The politicians are gonna flip if they just inject another $1 trillion without, if things are going well. I don't know. I think that the Federal Reserve is in a tough spot politically because the banks and the system seems to be saying that more liquidity is needed.
Gary Rich says the VIX curve is contago, good for markets short term.
Yeah. I bet you VIX is going to get killed today. Like, I'm going to be interested to see where it opens up. See, if there are like real problems, I don't foresee that coming into the market until later in the summer, like in August and September. Market year pointing out the 10-year getting very tight.
Gary Rich says, are you shitting me? The politicians have expanded the fiscal balance sheet by 4 trillion. Our debt is 26 trill by end of September 28 trill.
I can tell you right now, if there was a bill in the Senate for another stimulus that involved giving Americans stimulus checks, it would not pass. No way. You have to they wouldn't be able to get a majority. The Democrats would all vote against it, and you'd get at least 1 or 2 Republicans to say, "No, we need to clamp down now." OBLS on continuing misclassification error. The overall employment rate would have been about 1 percentage point higher than reported. Donald Trump is tweeting a video. It looks like the video of them taking down a statue of some. Oh no, that was the. It's a compilation of attacks. What is he going to say here?
Frankly,
Gary Rich says, I said to you that before COVID Trump would ask for 2 trill. And you laughed at me. Now who's laughing at who?
Yeah, that was way. I think you said that though before I realized that shit was going to happen. But I'm just telling you that if it was today and they asked for another $1 trillion in stimulus, they wouldn't get it. So, like, if this is a thing, how are they going to get that? You know, like the market would have to start, you know, doing nasty things. So there's no way they're going to put more stimulus into it when like Nasdaq is at all-time highs. There's no way. They would the political will does not exist. Let's hear what's Trump saying here. Was this just a repeat of when he was
For our statues, it started off with Confederate statues, but then it went to George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, Abraham Lincoln. It went to people that were abolitionists, people that wanted to stop slavery. It went to anything because, frankly, it didn't matter to them. Anarchists, agitators, looters, and people aren't happy. We call it the silent majority, but it's really bigger than that. It's called the vast silent majority. And we're all going to make sure that this doesn't happen any longer. Our country is great. It's going to be greater than ever before. No doubt about it.
Well, not his best speech, but okay. He's still pushing the statue thing. I'm surprised that Donald Trump didn't say anything about the shooting in Provo. I thought that was okay. So now the 10-year is pushing down a bit more. Larry bumped from the cash open after the White House saw the gains in the futures post non-farms payroll. So if there was any question about whether or not the White House was putting their economic advisors up on television to cheerlead the markets, there's the definitive proof that that's exactly what's happening. Of course, it was obvious to anybody in the market already that that's what was happening. But man, I don't know how you deny it after that.
Gary Rich says, are you joking? If the Republicans resist, the Dems would use it as a weapon. Understand how the politics work.
No, I do understand how the politics work. And the point is, well, yesterday you said the London session would front run this jobs report. Although, you know what, though, Gary, like yesterday was kind of, I don't know. I know you want to like claim when you're right and when you're not, but I don't know if that's really what happened yesterday. Anyways, on the politics of it, the Republicans absolutely can do nothing, and they won't get punished at all. I'll tell you how it works. Okay, Republican A, who is a fiscal conservative, says we can't take on more debt, and I'm not going to vote for it. And he tells Mitch McConnell that, and Mitch McConnell says, "Oh, we don't have enough votes to do this. We're just going to shelf it." In fact, they have already shelved stimulus bills that have been passed by the Senate. In fact, by the House. In fact, the Senate last night passed a pretty sizable infrastructure stimulus bill, and the Senate and the president have already said that they're not going to pass it. So, like, not only can they do it, but they are already doing what you're saying that they're not going to do. The political will for another $1 trillion in debt at this moment does not exist. There would need to be a change in the markets for the politicians to justify it. They just wouldn't do it. Because if they come in and the Democrats say, "Oh, the Republicans, they didn't pass the stimulus and you know that's been really bad," well, Republicans are just going to say, "We don't need it. Look, the Nasdaq is at all-time highs." Right? But then this gets back into this other thing, which is like, if we really need another $1 trillion in money to come into the markets from fiscal and monetary stimulus, what is going on? Like, things must not be as nice as it seems from the market, right? Like, how is it that the market is so bullish if things are really that bad that much monetary support is really needed? I think my understanding of it is like this. I'll draw a picture. Here's my understanding of it. You have a company, and this yellow line is their revenue, right? It's going up, and then COVID hits. Okay. And then it comes up, and you've got this slow rise to be able to recover and be making more money than they did before the crisis. There's a blue line here is solvency, which is to say that they have to make this much money in order to be okay. And so what happens is when we come down into here, the Federal Reserve comes in, and this will be this pink line. The Federal Reserve comes in and says, okay, we are going to give you money. Okay. And my understanding is that we're somewhere like right here. So if the monetary stimulus, well, we're probably actually more like that. We're saying if the monetary stimulus were to stop, then we would go back into insolvency, and those companies would start having problems again. So my understanding of it is that they need to continue the money coming out. Now, the Federal Reserve can continue to pump money out, but the thing that is concerning is that the amount of money that the banks are saying needs to be pushed into the system to be able to accomplish this is like insane. Not insane, but I mean like it's surprising how high it is. You know what I mean? I want to say insane like that it would be a bad idea or anything like that. It's surprising how much it is.
Sunday Driver says we have a market that simply can't support itself. The bullishness comes 100% from the Fed and its willingness to cross any red line.
So that's another issue. I'm not 100% convinced that that's what's happening, because you got to remember, it's not like the Federal Reserve is out there directly buying ETFs or anything like that, right? What is happening is they're putting money into banks, and banks are giving people loans, and then the people are using those loans to go out and do business. So when the Federal Reserve puts not QE, because remember, this is not QE as well, right? When the Federal Reserve puts not QE in there, it doesn't directly stimulate the market in the way that people act like it does, right? It's really much the up is much more psychological than anything else. People know that you don't want to fight the Federal Reserve, and so they're all buyers. That's I think the real honest way of things. So this is why the Federal Reserve is in such a pinch, because they sit down and they say, well, we don't target any particular level on the S&P 500 or anything like that. And I think that that's honest. I think that they look at how much money do we need to put into the system in order for companies to continue regular operations. And that's it. And if the market reads too much into that and overbuys equities, it's not their problem from their perspective. Now I say that it is your problem, because now they're in a bind, right? Now they need to stimulate more, but the market is already overbought. And if you start putting even more in, then what's going to happen? You know? So, but I think that the market is front running the Federal Reserve, and that the rise is largely caused by psychological factors, that people know that the markets should generally go up because of Federal Reserve support. and it's like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You know what I mean?
Sunday driver says money is fungible. Where is any injection of money going to go when it searches for return? In this low rate environment, a big chunk will run into equities.
Right, but the bank can't directly buy it with that, right? Yeah, I need to remember that what a bank can actually buy is very limited now, right? They're all bank holding companies. They're not really allowed to do like proprietary trading or anything like that, right? It's coming in the form of the extra support that they're able to give their clients. They're definitely using it to buy equities, but what they're doing is they have this huge pile of cash, and then they're going around to hedge funds and they're saying, okay, well, you know, we can support this operation, and you all know that the Federal Reserve is buying it and that it's going to go up, so I recommend that you buy X, Y, and Z. And they say, that sounds like a great idea, let's go do it. And hence when you go and you look at the leverage is still really high because they use that money to give their clients leverage. That's my understanding of it, but obviously this is something that's way more complicated than any understanding that I have. And even though there are people that are exponentially more knowledgeable about it than myself, even they, can't completely understand the system or what's going to happen. What we get is just our best guess. That. Students protest outside home of white woman seen in viral video calling cops on black neighbors. Oh, I haven't seen that video. I thought they were talking about that couple in Seattle, but that must not be what it's talking about. U.S. Treasury Secretary Mnuchin talks with other airlines will continue. Reports that Deutsche Bank is currently mulling some financial aid for Wirecard. Oh, Trump will hold a news briefing at the bottom of the hour. So he's going to go out there and tout these positive the positive jobs numbers. Yeah. In fact, he tweets it right now. News conference at 9:30 Eastern Time. Great jobs numbers.
Sunday driver says this activity makes the Fed window from 2008 look tame.
Yeah, right.
Uzi Knesset says I'm waiting for the day pulling your cell phone out and recording someone can be considered threatening someone's life, lol.
I tell you what, like that whole thing with the Seattle couple.
Gary Rich says, Seth, remember you scoffed at the automation report I gave you? Well, who is laughing now? That report came out in 2018. I went long 6 of the 7. I'm very patient. Gary Rich says.
Oh, yeah, I am scoffing at it. Just because I'll go make my own equities research decisions. And I'm also just not, I don't know, man. I have a really hard time making decisions about stocks when the PE multiples are so screwed up,
Uzi Knesset says Scoffy Duffy.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. If you want to come in and try and get me to follow you, it's never going to happen. That's not how I work. Right? There's so many different places that you could put the money, and I'm gonna pick where I choose, where I think
Sunday
I have
driver
the
says this
best.
market is going to crash after the election.
Oh, you think so? Well, I tell you what, if Joe Biden
Gary Rich
wins,
says, well, due to COVID, so much automation is coming.
yeah, that's true. Yeah, if I got to tell you what, if Joe Biden becomes president, I don't think people realize he was going off of this campaign promise that nothing fundamentally is going to change was one of the things that he said, and he took a lot of heat from the left for that. And they're trying to push back against that. Now they're saying, "Oh, I'm going to raise people's taxes," which is a change from what it is now, but it supposedly isn't a change from what the Obama years are. But you have to realize that you know Obama didn't really get to do all of this stuff, right? He pushed through healthcare
E-Trader
reform.
says hey.
He shoved it down our throats as quickly as he possibly could, and he lost so much political capital in doing that that they literally couldn't do anything else. So, like a great example is this housing stuff, right? Obama implemented these housing rules that we were talking about yesterday that have been detrimental to communities, and Biden wants to come in and finish that and expand it, and that would have a negative impact on suburban areas and make them more Democrat, right? I don't think that people realize the impact that Biden will potentially have, especially if he has a Democrat Senate and a Democrat House. You're going to get all of the taxes are going to go up. Just straight up, all of your taxes are going to go up. Um, they're going to just completely ignore the immigration laws. Like you're going to have tons of people come in. Um, they might not throw away the progress that we've had with China on trade, but they are certainly not going to hold their feet to the fire at all.
E-Trader says Obama had a lot of people going against him from the start of his presidency.
Yes, but he had, when you're president, you get a certain amount of political capital. He spent it all in his first quarter. He spent it all on healthcare reform. So there was no way he could get Republicans to do anything with him after that, right? The Republicans kind of went along with it for healthcare reform. But then after that, they filibustered everything because the healthcare reform ended up, going so badly for them.
E-Trader says really I though second term.
Mm-hmm. So all of these things that a Joe Biden presidency would do are not positive for the markets. So I agree with you. I think that if Joe Biden was to win, there would be a sizable drop in the equity markets. I would be really cautious about staying that way because something that happens to people is they trade off of their politics. So they say, "Oh, Joe Biden presidency is bad for the market, so I don't want to be in the market for the next 8 years." And that's probably not the case. Probably the market readjusts to the new tax laws and everything else like that, and then we continue going on. And that's kind of one of the scary things is then you get like what we had in the Obama years where, hey, we go and we make new market
Sunday Driver
highs.
says if Dems own everything, they will have free healthcare and open borders and a massive amnesty. In 1 year, they'll add 30 million new Americans that will forever change the country.
They have 30 million. I mean, the number of people that the Democrats would allow through our borders would be insane. Yeah, absolutely. Because they would change all of it would be like executive orders first week, everybody come. I think.
E-Trader says this era in the US is really unique. There is always a time in US where a president will come and have no impact or strong personality.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is that Obama was relatively, I don't know. Obama's an interesting character, right? Because he was kind of far left, but he
Uzi
kind of
Knesset
wasn't.
says I can honestly say, if Dems win in November, it's game over for Republicans in the presidency. They will make DC and PR states. Republicans in politics will go extinct mostly.
I don't know if that will happen, Uzi. You can't making DC if they made DC a state, it would get struck down by the Supreme Court. The Constitution is abundantly clear that the DC has to be a district, and the best that they could do is take all of the suburbs out of the District of Columbia and give it to Virginia. That's the best that they could do on that front. And Puerto Rico, I could be wrong, but I really don't think that Puerto Rico wants to be a state.
Blackpink Lisa says, who is winning in America right now?
Well, that's a weird question. I don't think that's a really answerable or useful question. It's too broad.
Uzi Knesset says, culturally or politically. Lol.
Too broad of a question. Well, the volatility in the E-mini has really calmed down. They've come up and they've generated pretty good.
Sunday Driver says new fields will arise. I expect that the USA will start to resemble Mexico or Colombia. Invest in companies that specialize in personal security.
Well, yeah. So that's another thing is that if the Democrats take control, although this kind of matters more at your local levels, but yeah, there's probably going to be more crime.
Lisa says politically.
Probably going to be more crime. And like I said, going sideways, right? Everybody's worried about the crash, that we're going to go down and we're going to go and take out the recession lows and all this stuff. That's not the thing that you got to be worried about with the market. It's going sideways. Going sideways is the thing that's going to piss
Uzi
everybody
Knesset
off.
says, hard to tell really. There's a lot of narrative operations going on right now.
Sunday Driver says Dems are winning at the moment, I think.
Okay, if we were to look at it for the election, who is winning? Probably the Democrats are winning. Probably the amount that they are winning is overstated, and the momentum is starting to move against them. They are losing momentum at the moment. So always be careful. Remember that politics are just like markets, it's a pendulum. Goes back and forth, and they always overextend on one side. And so the Democrats kind of had a double whammy. So, it's also just like the markets that, the bulls take their move, and then the bears take their move, and then the bulls take their move. Oh, the bulls
Uzi
weren't able to
Knesset
take
says,
it as
I think
far.
that pendulum is gonna change soon.
Right? This matters. So when you're looking at politics, if you're a political operative, this is the sort of thing that matters. The Democrats were just able to get a double
Uzi
move,
Knesset
right?
says it won't be a pendulum anymore. We're heading to a one-party state.
They got that. This was COVID, and this was Black Lives Matters. Okay, so it went too far, but they're now trailing off. So will the Republicans take advantage and catch their feet back on them? And they can do that. It's possible.
Sunday Driver says, doesn't it really feel like we have a black swan who warming up to fly and change everything? Doesn't feel like smooth sailing and blue skies ahead.
RJ Wheels says, I got news for you. It is a one-party state.
Okay. What is this about Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein, confidant and British socialite Harris Christine Maxwell has been arrested by the FBI.
Uzi Knesset says Julkie 31st extra welfare goodies expire. That's the line in the sand.
Yeah. You're right, Uzi. Unless they extend it.
E-Trader says Jeffrey is dead.
This is kind of another thing is I think that they might have probably they would be able to extend it. Probably they would be able to extend it, but I kind of sit here and wonder, okay, what is the market going to do in the next month?
Gary Rich says the markets didn't trade down due to BLM. The markets didn't give a crap about some spoiled brats.
No, I had nothing to do with
Uzi
that.
Knesset says if Republicans want to continue the recovery, they'll have no choice but to expand the welfare state. The bigger that gets, the more the scales are in favor of Democrats.
Sunday Driver says, I agree with it, RJ Wheel. Dems are going to be ruthless and will rule with an iron fist. AOC will be steering things in the decade to come.
Nah. The thing is, the thing that's interesting about it is that I really don't think that Americans want the Democrat Party to be in charge. The only way that Joe Biden is able to stand a chance is by saying, "I'm just going to be the cool guy in charge, and I'm not going to screw a whole lot of things up." The instant that he starts to come in and say, oh, actually, also, we're going to implement all of the Democrats' wish list items, Americans are going to be like, no. Especially not if they are going to give Democrats complete control over everything. And that's the thing that I think the Republicans have in their favor that they can use in the long run.
Uzi Knesset says very possible they don't, but like I said before, November is gonna be about money in voters' pockets. Democrats own that market. Gary Rich says you better pray to your higher power that the Dems don't sweep all three branches.
But like I said, it's a pendulum. Like I'm just telling you guys from the comments that you're giving me, you're not seeing your spot on the field. I know everything is like, oh, it's so bad, and the Democrats are going to win, and they're going to take over everything. That's what it seems like now. You have to understand the pendulum has swung, and the momentum is about to go the other way. Let the momentum go the other way, and then see where you're at.
Knesset says we're all blackpilled as hell, haha.
Right? It's like, come down. The Dems just had this, okay, and now we're having the pullback again, okay. Let the Republicans have their play and see where they take it to. Okay, if the Republicans take it up here and then the Democrats take it again, and then probably you're right. But at the moment, we don't actually have the ability to see where we're really
Sunday
at.
Driver says from a cultural and social standpoint, the US dollar being the reserve currency is very bad. So much misallocation of resources due to that status. I'm actually hoping we lose reserve status.
That seems like a kind of a far out of left field comment.
Uzi Knesset says, how do I set my accent again?
You got to do, do exclamation point info.
Blackpink Lisa says, I am new here. I got to know you through the computer setup video.
Oh.
Do you trade Forex, futures, or both?
So I'm doing futures. So what you see right now on the screen, these are the S&P 500 futures.
Uzi Knesset says, info.
Should do it. I think it's info. Yep. There's the S&Ps, and these are the Treasuries. That's a 30, 10, and 5.
Gary Rich says the battleground states matter most. It's the bread and butter for elections. If Texas and Florida go blue, we market participant are screwed.
Yeah. But these polls that showing that like Joe Biden could win in Texas are probably.
Uzi Knesset says, set accent Russian M.
Узи несет сейс, сет акцент Россиам.
No, you did it. It did it. It did it.
Узи несет сейс ема Russian bot.
And you can do them on one off.
Sunday Driver says, Seth, I don't think you are looking at dynamic analysis. When the Dems grant amnesty to 30 million Hispanics, there will be no pendulum swing. It will be forever stuck left.
We're not talking about it. We're just talking about whether they win the election or not, right? When you're coming in and everybody's saying, "Oh, like they're absolutely going to take it," I'm just
Blackpink
saying.
Lisa says, Japan F.
You can't. We really don't. You really can't know where we're at because you haven't seen the pushback.
Sunday Driver says, "Lol."
You have to do it right. Use set accent, or if you just do exclamation point accent and then the thing and then say something, and you can do it just that one time. There's going to be a ton of politicians on television today, apparently. So you got Trump at 9:30 press conference. Pence is going to be on CNBC at 10 o'clock. McCarthy, leader of the House.
Узи несет сейс и шоул probably chant shaititus a meeting is here to understand law.
Gary Rich says the Hispanic population will be the largest by 2030. It's demographics.
Probably. There's another thing about the Hispanic demographic, though. is that what the Hispanic
RJ
demographics
Wheels
will do in
says
the
Hispanics
future.
can be flipped conservative.
Yeah, exactly. Is actually quite unpredictable. If they became really a truly powerful demographic
Uzi
group,
Knesset says statics and Indium.
there you go. Then I I think that they could really start their own party, you know? Like I don't think that they would just go along with everything that the Democrats want to do. I don't.
Uzi Knesset says sorry, lol.
I mean, it's fine. Like the thing is
プラスピンクリサ SAYS、セタクセントジャパンズ。
that is for me to be able to read what you guys are saying without having to look off of the DOM. Although nothing's really happening, so I'm over here. But
Sunday Driver says at RJ Wheel Republicans have been chasing that will-o-wisp for decades. Lol. Will never happen. Republicans are the party of white voters, but do nothing for whites.
nah, they're not going to be. There won't be Republicans.
RJ Wheel says their heritage is from failed socialist corrupt rule by terror countries. Plus they are religious, hard-working, industrious. Dan H says, info.
They're well, they are. There's the next generation of kids is what you have to look at, right? So the issue right now is that the kids, particularly in areas like California, are becoming quite radical. Okay, here's the open. Was really quite quiet going into the open, but they're probably going to try and buy this up to a new high. Let's see.
Uzi Knesset says I'm actually surprised that immigrant populations from failed socialist states have a tendency to vote for Democrats promising them a failed socialist state. It's weird.
Well, probably from their perspective, they don't see them as communists. I mean, that's the thing that's so curious about it, is that the line between what were we gonna say, like milk toast Democrat socialist that can still maintain a somewhat reasonable democracy, and the all out communism is such a thin line. And you can sit and you can walk on that line for decades and decades and decades, and then all of a
Uzi
sudden
Knesset
just
says
fall
I know
over.
here in FL Cuban immigrants don't fall for that shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the Cubans. Yeah, you're right.
プ
You're
ラ
right.
ス
They
ピン
tend
ク
to be
リサ
Republican.
SAYS ザットワズファニー PRO。
The Korean one is so freaking. The Korean and Japanese ones are like totally. What the hell are they saying?
Dan H says we need a southern accent, lol.
I wish. Google. You tell Google that they need a southern accent.
Gary Rich says we need to bring back slapping children, not abusive punishment. Just to beat them temporarily. It
Just-
worked for me.
Oh man. You know what? Yesterday, so my wife went to the theater, so I was alone with the baby, and the baby is teething. So he basically cried the whole time, and I had fed him and give him so he was fine. I had even given him a Tylenol, children's Tylenol or whatever to help the tooth pain. He kept crying, and I tell you what, it was making me mad. But then, like when I was even thinking about just like taking a pillow and throwing it at the wall to vent a little bit of frustration, obviously would never do anything to the child, but even just doing that in front of the kid, I couldn't do it. It was like it just sucked it all out of me. He's too cute, I guess. Oh man, I just don't understand how anybody could beat their child. Is it's totally how.
Sunday Driver says Hispanics have a long streak of grievance mindset. They always consider the rich to be dishonest and untrustworthy, and believe they should be taxed into oblivion. They will always be 75% Democrat.
Gary Rich says I used to hide the leather belt. Then mom started with hangers, couldn't hide all of those. Yeah mom.
I'm just telling you, even if they still vote Democrat, their role in the party will probably not be what we expect. It's probably unpredictable. because there are definitely some cultural tendencies that are very conservative, and especially so like so for instance, here's a question: why is there a Black Lives Matters movement but not a Mexican Lives Matters movement? I'll tell you why. Because if there was a Mexican Lives Matters movement, the Mexican moms would come out and they say, "No, you probably deserved it. You should follow the law. Get your ass back inside," and then she'd beat your butt. Like that's the way that Hispanic moms are, right? There's kind of like this undercurrent of like lawlessness, but then at the same time there's like your mom is like gonna make sure that you're a good boy, and that's a really strong part of their culture, you know. So there wouldn't be the same Democrat Party if it was completely dominated by Latinos. It just wouldn't be the same Democrat Party. Period.
Winston's mom says good morning. Non-farms the sequel. Speaking of non-farming, poor Asher could not farm any milk when mom's at the movie.
Sunday Driver says Ghislaine Maxwell arrested in New Hampshire.
Yep.
Winston's mom says Gary Rich was Joan Crawford your mother? HEXMAN says any plan B for the next president.
Ozzy Knesset says BLM movement is spearheaded by white communists who leverage lowering standards for black Americans to gain their support.
Gary Rich says yes, there is one for Hispanics, it's called La Raza. They want all states to do back to Mexico.
Well, there is that. That's a little different. That's not an anti-police movement though. Right. I'm just saying Hispanics are not anti-cop in the same way. Even though they probably have I don't know, I've not gone into the statistics, but I bet you that statistically Hispanics probably have a better case for abuse by police than Hispanics than black people do. The stats that I've seen show that black people are actually treated better by cops because the cops are so worried about being getting canned from things like the Rodney King, so are we still getting gold non okay. See that gold took a pretty big dip off of this news and now they've retraced about 50% of it. Okay. Okay. So this trend is so far is
Sunday Driver says there is a BLM because blacks want to be the center of minority politics again. They lost that status when Hispanics became a larger demographic. They are saying, hey, look at US.
Den Haar says, set accent Germany.
Oh, damn.
Gary Rich says ask MS-13 about getting touchy-feely by cops.
That I just love that voice. Oh, that German voice. Well, okay, so there was the first sell that we've seen. That might have been news triggered, but I think that we're going to be able to hold it.
HEXMAN says soon, the cops will be replaced by the robots, then it won't be any racism.
Well, haven't you seen all...
says too bad Arnold was not born in the US.
Gary Rich says is there a Ebonics accent?
Haven't you seen all this stuff about, they created these algorithms and the algorithms, they claimed that the algorithms ended up being racist just because, some statistical things do hold for demographic groups that aren't favorable to the demographic groups. And it was like, in denial because that's, I don't know. I guess it is systemically racist if it says that, but it's also kind of like that's the reality. You want that to be the reality. If you don't want that to be the reality, then change your behavior.
Sunday Driver says I think all MS-13 should be wanted dead or alive. If you are MS-13, there should be a $50,000 bounty on your head.
Yeah, we haven't heard much about that in a while, have we? I remember when the president was making a deal about that and stuff. That was obviously trying to focus our attention on something, but was maybe not as big of a deal as he's trying to make it out to be.
HEXMAN says Cedric Chauviat, a white man, was killed few months earlier exactly like George Floyd.
Yeah, and they ignored it. Yeah. It's true. Who cares? Some of you are, I think, preaching to the choir a little bit. Like, yeah, I think that we all agree that Black Lives Matters is kind of a front for communism, and that the statistics don't really back up a lot of the claims that they're making, and that it's mostly being pushed by the media, and the media is actually amplifying it because it's useful to Democrats in the election. I mean, make no mistake about it. We had a shooting in Provo 2 days ago. Man was literally shot in his car by a Black Lives Matters protester, and the media is totally memory holding
says
it.
it complicated, Seth.
Sunday Driver says,
Completely
remember that
ignored it.
AI that, I think, Facebook set up. The computers started their own language and doing God knows what. The humans freaked out and unplugged the machine. Ha ha ha.
Because they were finding that the African American commenters were actually being using more racist words and toxic language than the white people were. If I recall correctly. Let's see
ブラック
here.
ピンクリサ SAYSNE 相当 WAR ビトウィーンインド and China and how would THIS affect the market?
Okay, so good question, Blackpink. So first of all, I don't think that there's going to be a war between China and India. They've kind of been having skirmishes back and forth for a long time.
Gary Rich says wait hold on, Provo, Utah allows black people to live there. Okay, check Provo off my list to move to.
Absolutely
Uzi
do.
Knesset says I'm rooting for India. I know that much.
I know that much. 2 questions. Wait, let me come back to that, Lisa. I don't think that there's going to be a war between India and China. At some point, there will be like World War III, and it will be like China versus everybody. But that's not happening right now. They're just going to continue to jockey over that area, but I don't think that anything ever is really going to happen. And you got to remember that the reason that area is strategically significant to both China and India is because of water. So that's kind of the deal that's going on there. But in the overall picture, it's not really a significant driver for any kind of flows in the markets that we look at. It's just something that we need to keep an eye on, because at some point in the future, it's going to be really good background knowledge when other more important things happen, like on trade and stuff like that. Okay, so on the Provo allows black people to live there. Yeah, absolutely. There are black people in Utah. There's not very many, but when I was working downtown, I would see one a day. Although the black people that we have in Utah are I don't know. I've never met a black person in Utah that I didn't think was a really clean, like the whole thing about racism is, like, for me living in Utah, I don't understand it at all, because I have very, very little interaction with, Black Americans. I should call them Black Americans, because some people don't like being called African Americans. I prefer Black Americans. First of all, I don't have very many interactions with them, and then the interactions that I have had are all positive. Like, they're cleaner and better spoken than most white people that I know. So it's like, now when I was a missionary, it was very different. I don't think that when I was a missionary that I ever had a black investigator hold an appointment. I don't think that ever happened as a missionary. But here in Utah, they're, most Black Americans in Utah, it's like they might as well have been adopted by white parents. Like, they're not black culturally, if that makes sense. So, whatever. But don't say things like that. It's not. I know it was kind of being silly, but
Gary Rich says, holy crap, Seth. You just said I didn't meet a cleaner black man. Holy crap, man. I'm falling off my chair.
Yeah, it
Sunday
is.
Driver says my zip code is 85% black. Let's just say it's a different environment than Provo, Utah. Lol.
Well, I don't. Why is what I'm saying controversial? I'm just saying that Black Americans, Black Utahns, are culturally different from Black Texans and Floridans. Okay, the culture in Utah ends up being the Utah culture ends up being a much more significant influence on people than their race. Like that, frankly, here in Utah, I don't think that race is indicative of anything about a person. I just, there's literally no patterns. Like you could go through and do statistics, and I don't think that you would find a whole lot, other than that, probably Hispanics tend to be a little bit poor generally. But even then, when I lived in West Valley, holy crap, man! Like that, because I had a lot of Hispanic neighbors, and they were loaded. They were loaded. Yeah.
RJ Wheel says you've got Mia love. She's clean.
Yeah. I don't mean to imply that like Black Americans tend to not be clean. I'm just saying that is the stereotype, and the stereotype of the Black stereotype in America. I have never met anybody even close to that in Utah. There's nothing. They're all like Mia Love. Mia Love is a good example, but she's from Haiti. That's and you can kind of tell that.
Gary Rich says that's like me saying I always meet clean white people. Holy crap, you are funny with your descriptions. I know you don't mean harm, but you're funny.
The clean white people. So then now let's talk about that, because I know a lot of trashy white people. This is one of the things that I always find really bizarre is this assumption that all white people are like doing well and have this advantage in life,
RJ
which
Wheel
is
says
just,
Mia was born in New York City.
I tell you what, man, there are a lot of white people that are stuck in this cultural hole of being poor, man. And usually it starts with a parent that was on drugs, and then they pass that on to their kids, and ugh, telling you how you're raised is just a huge part of where you end up. Being told as you grow up that the difference between being told the world will always be against you and our lot in life is just hard because there's systemic racism against us and it's always going to limit your potential, versus being told that you can do almost anything that you want in life if you work hard enough and nobody will be able to stop you. That is a huge difference in how that affects a kid, from my observations, having seen lots of families as a missionary. And that matters so much more than anything else. That's why I really think that some of the things that, of course, we should have equal rights. And if a certain group is being treated poorly by the cops, which I don't think there's any evidence to say that they are, but if there was, that should be taken care of. But some of the ideas that they're pushing are so harmful to the people that they're trying to help. Probably we've gotten strayed a little bit too far from markets now, though. But that's if I was going to say something about that, that's what I would say, is that if you want to help Black Americans, and I think that there are some things that we can do as a society to help specific racial groups that aren't doing as well as others, but Black Lives Matters is not the way to do it. Black Lives Matters is not the way to do it. Rioting and chaos is not the way to do it. And separating people is not the way to do it. The way to do it is to teach people economic success, like what Donald Trump has been doing, right? You come in, you can do anything you want if you work hard enough. People will not be able to stop you. Will not be able to stop you. And under Donald Trump, there's been record numbers of Black Americans that have started businesses and are becoming very economically productive, and that is going to do more for the African American population than any protest. That's the way to do it. So if I was going to get anything out about that, that would be the thing. It's frustrating because I've been trying to tell people, like, if you want to help the Black community, don't go out rioting, because it's not very convincing. But people don't want to listen. Whatever. That's people, I guess. That should be expected.
Sunday Driver says the Chaz is very interesting. All white supremacy was removed from the Chaz, and what happened? Was it a bit of heaven on earth?
Right. Well, it was. The ideas that these people have about how to run a society simply don't work, right? So the Chaz was a freaking disaster for them. Now, interestingly enough, today there were protesting and pushing against the police. Like, so now you realize, the whole thing is that they want to be in conflict with the police, because that's how they get the attention and how they get their message out. And because the police weren't clearing them out of the Chaz, it was really harmful to them. You see, the correct thing to do is, if you're a politician and you want to undermine those protests, is to do nothing. Because if you don't give them anything to fight against, they just self-destruct. Donald Trump talked really tough, but in the end, it didn't really do a whole lot, and that was the correct decision. Zero hedge on Tesla believers. My gosh, so I heard Tesla was 1,200. What is it now? Market cap topped 208 billion. Toyota is worth a mere 203. Man, that stock is just, that whole thing is just crazy. Live Squawk says eased lockdown restrictions pushed non-farm payroll beat. Does that mean that in July we will have a miss on the payroll report because some states are reimposing certain lockdown restrictions? Hasn't been too extreme though.
Gary Rich says Tesla is gaming the system. They delayed earnings till August.
Did they really? I did not know that. Well, I should come in here to...
Ozzy Knesset says they're resisting reclosing here in FL. If they close again, I'ma lose it.
If they close again. Well, did you see this thing from the Texas governor? Where he said, look, we have our own health experts, and we're really confident that we know what we're doing, and
Sunday
we don't
Driver
need you
says
guys
Tesla
anymore.
is a giant scheme. It's a shame because they make nice cars.
That, and this was the one that was killing me, is they said, well, we never locked down and we have less deaths in
Young
New York,
Hong says
so
hotspots need to reclose.
that one is a little scary. A lot of the rise in cases has more to do with testing, because you notice that the testing rate is going up, but the death rate is not. At some point, though, the death rate is going to go up. And I think that the Texas governors are going to
Gary Rich
saying
says
that.
if you buy a Cybertruck, just turn your nuts to Walmart and put them on layaway.
I'm waiting for them to make a cyber van. I was telling that because my wife wants a new van. I'm like, can we just wait? Because certainly Mr. Musk is going to make a cyber van. And why wouldn't you want a cyber van? That's what I want. It's a cyber van. Come on. It's like, they should make cyber everything. But I think that they should go to a cyber, because that's the thing that's missing in their lineup, is a van.
Ozzy Knesset says no, we don't. COVID-19 ain't shit. The only reason people think it is because of the attention we're paying to it. Statistically, COVID-19 isn't even a damn fart.
Well, okay. there's still going to be a lot of deaths from it. And in Texas, there's still going to be a lot of deaths from it. Probably it shouldn't justify shutting down. It doesn't look to me like that shutting down is actually an effective tactic, because it doesn't delay things long enough to get you to a vaccine, and so people just get infected later. But the death rate is going to go up. And I wouldn't be surprised if some places do close back down.
Uzi Knesset says there's a lot of deaths from friggin' everything. You just don't care because no one is telling you to.
For sure. My opinion right now is that based on the statistics that we're seeing, that the initial shutdown
Young
was
Hong
not
says it's to
justified.
lower the effect to the healthcare system, not lower deaths.
My take is that the initial, well, let me rephrase. Probably we did need to shut down to give the healthcare system time to prepare, but I think that we probably took it too far. And in particular, a lot of areas that shut down didn't need to. They should have waited until they actually had a certain amount of cases. You have a certain amount of cases, like if Texas had never shut down and then maybe now they were shutting down, then that would help, because in Houston, they've reached their hospital capacity. And I'm concerned about in an area like Houston where,
Uzi Knesset
it's
says yes, and
probably,
expanding healthcare systems is a better alternative to closing down the planet, but spending trillions of dollars on welfare payments seems to be preferable to spending it on hospitals.
but it's going to be a real problem if the number of cases in the Houston area continues to rise and the hospital is still booked. That's when you start to get a lot of deaths, right? That's when the death rate is not just like 0.4. Oh my, they're still counting over Utah race. Should look here. Yeah, their numbers are still the same. Haven't changed. Thing is that probably you guys probably don't care about Utah politics, but we had our primary the other day, and we had a three-way race between John Huntsman Jr., Spencer Cox, and Greg Hughes, and it looks like Spencer Cox is going to win. Greg Hughes was the conservative, and he just was performed dismally, getting 20% versus the 36% from Cox. And
Uzi Knesset says the thing about hospitals, bro, you know how many people I know who hit up the ER for a damn cold because they don't have PCPS, like how many people are hitting ERS for COVID for the same reason.
Well, it's not just like people going to the hospital though, Uzi. It's like the number of ICU units that they have free. All of the intensive care units are full, which means like people that are like hooked up to machines and on, have severe symptoms. So you get into this spot where if people aren't able to get treatment at the hospital, then there are a lot of preventable deaths. Like what happened in Italy. That's what happened in Italy. So
Uzi Knesset says yeah, but they said the other day that hospitals running at 90% your ICU capacity is pretty typical even without COVID.
But in Houston, they were at like 102%. So they're already full. If like let me put it this way. Here's the spike, right? We're trying to make the spike like this with a long tail. Okay. And here's the hospital capacity, right? Well,
Uzi Knesset says yeah, and 102% could very well be an additional 5 people.
it might maybe when we look at
Gary
what's
Rich
happening.
says go long funeral home related stocks.
We're probably going to have this.
Sunday Driver says for Houston, I hear that's true. They run a higher than normal ICU capacity rate, which means they're screwed when Corona-chan takes off.
Yep.
Den says hospitals do not plan ahead. I was in the ICU for a procedure 1 year and the nurses kept having to borrow equipment from room to room just to keep everyone going.
So here's the question in Houston. How many people have actually gotten it? Are we here or are we here? If we're here, then no big deal. We hit the capacity, but it'll trail off and we'll be fine. If we're here, watch out. Hundreds of thousands of people are going to die. Well, I guess in Houston it would be tens of thousands, but you get what I'm saying. If we're here. But I don't know where we're at on that. And you're right that Houston has a particular problem because they don't have a whole lot of hospital capacity to begin with, and they tend to run high. So we're getting to the point now where we don't want, we could have nasty coronavirus headlines come through.
Uzi Knesset says, like I said, problem we have isn't COVID, it's that we have 1 million hospital beds in a country of 330 million people.
Yeah, probably you're right, Uzi. Probably right. You can't necessarily just build more hospital beds. Although the interesting thing is that they did build all of this stuff out in New York to handle, and then they didn't need it. So obviously they've been wrong about things, right?
Gary Rich says until next year when a possible vaccine arrives, it's just gonna be whack-a-mole. Pick your hole to pop up from COVID.
That's where I was reading this article, and they had a really good point, which was that in some of these instances,
Sunday Driver says we are at the lower line. Millions and millions will die. We are screwed.
Sometimes
Uzi
it's
Knesset
just
says bare minimum we should have capacity for 3 million, 1% rule.
okay. I don't know. Sometimes it's like impossible to analyze what's actually going on. And I think that right now with coronavirus, like that's certainly the case because it seems to me that
Winston's mom
policymakers
says
have
I
made
know this is my
mistakes.
cue to ask everyone to please hit like.
I know
Thanks, thumbs up.
lots of talking too when we hit like. No. Sometimes it's impossible, and I think that's the case with coronavirus. They seem to have made some mistakes, but okay. See this one. This right here is. Well, okay. My cue. Hold on a second. I will finish that thought. I will turn you guys back on. Put all your comments in now. Put all your comments in now. Start typing. Go.
Den H says of course, hospitals are just trying to do things as cheap as possible to save money and make a profit.
HEXMAN says it ain't over, Seth. You are going through what Europeans did.
What do you mean by that, Hexman? I mean, the thing is the Europeans haven't really reopened in some places. So that's another thing that I think is really funny is that like people are like, "Oh, Europe did so much better than the United States," but then it's like, well, Europe hasn't reopened yet, and they'll reopen and then they'll have problems. And some places in Europe got hit way harder than the United States anyways, right? Yeah. Anyways, the thought that I was going to go through.
RJ Wheel says this more sustained than what Europe went through.
Yeah. Was that in some cases it's just too difficult to analyze what's actually going on. And that's the case with coronavirus is that like there's so much argue over numbers and what is a legit number and what's actually going to happen and this and that and what the correct policy is over it. Like this thing in Texas where the Texas governor says, "Nah, you know what? We know what we're doing and we don't need your help because you've been wrong about too many things." And I understand why they feel that way. Because they have made mistakes. They have, no question about it. Some places shut down and they didn't need to. Straight up, they should have waited. I believe that at least, but I'm not an expert on it and I don't really know. So how do you analyze that? Well, I think in a case like this, you don't want to analyze it. You just want to look at what is the end effect of it. What is the end effect of it? There's a couple of things that are end effects from this whole thing that I find really concerning. Like, apparently, there is no limit to what laws you can force on people in the name of public safety. That is disturbing to me because people's rights have been infringed. Like when they sit down and they say, you can't have church, but we can have a protest outside, your rights have been infringed. Your rights were infringed and theirs weren't. Your rights were infringed in the name of safety, and for their rights, they said, well, we'll let them do what they want. It's not a fair application of the law. What they did was unconstitutional. I hope that these churches sue and win, and then some of them kind of have been, but it's, that's one of the net effects of it, right? Is it intentional? I don't know, but like that's the end result, is that people accept almost anything in the name of public safety.
Sunday Driver says I see no positive direction for Europe.
HEXMAN says you lock out, you lose money, you stay open, the virus is spreading. Gary Rich says yesterday the border collie wasn't gonna get a new hip, today she gonna get 4 of them.
Oh, yeah.
HEXMAN says my guess, unfortunately, the USA will be hit ever harder. Your states aren't synchronized.
You're right, Hex. I think you're right. New York was so far ahead of everybody, and so we all shut down when it was happening in New York, and all we did was delay it.
HEXMAN says in France when they said lockout, all French were lockout. RJ Wheels says flu season. Second wave in fall will be the true crisis. RJ Wheels says imagine that.
So this was New York, right? Here's what happened here in Utah. That's what's happening right now. So
RJ Wheels says earns.
I think that our hospital capacity is up here, so I think that we're going to be okay in Utah, but that's what's going to happen. We didn't actually flatten the curve, but maybe we didn't have to, right? Same with in Houston. They're a little bit higher, but they're going like this. And here's their hospital capacity.
HEXMAN says I am very worried for my US family.
Now here's Europe. Europe was like New York, but they didn't quite get the thing. So some areas of Europe, when they open back up again, are going to get this. And then who knows if it's like that or what the deal is. But to sit down and say like that it's over in Europe, probably not. Because what determines if this happens? What determines if this happens? Herd immunity. If you haven't achieved herd immunity, then when you open back up again, this is going to happen. And then it just depends on how well did you shut down the first time as to whether or not you reached the hospital capacity. So some people are trying to call who won and who not way too early. Like I remember people trying to say back in April, this state did well or this state didn't do well. And it's like, it's not over, guys. This is going to go on for years. This is going to be a public health concern for years. And maybe after this fall, it's probably not going to be a huge deal to the majority of the public, but it's still going to be a thing because until everybody's caught it, you have herd immunity or you have a herd immunity from a vaccine, it's still going to be a thing. Well, anyways, we did get up into my targets and I took it off after 20 points. I think I'm happy with that trade. I do think that we could go higher.
Sunday Driver says I think the second wave this fall and winter is going to be a doozy. We aren't going to get herd immunity over the summer. No way.
3168 upside target. downside target 31.15. The reason I'm taking it off is because I'm concerned about now risks coming in and giving us a drop. So what we might have is risk comes in.
HEXMAN says it's picking back up in Europe.
Denha says what time of day are you getting the best ZB trades?
Oh man, that's a good question, Dan. We got to answer that one. So I'm finding bonds really hard to trade lately. If we come back and we look at like a longer term chart here, you look at it, it's just kind of flat. There was this one day where we got moves, but ever since like April, the bonds have just been shit. A lot of random movement that I can't predict. So that's the first kind of disclaimer that I have to put out there. But the next thing is that I'm kind of trying to work this out, but it seems like that there are times that are better to trade the bonds than others. So one of the things that I would think we should be aware of is that from 10:15 to 10:45 is the counter trend period. I think maybe you've heard us talk about that before. Here in the E-mini, that's probably a time period where we're going to get a little bit of a pullback. So I want to get out before that. Also, we could have coronavirus numbers come in during the next 30 minutes. I don't know. Yesterday, they didn't come in the way that I expected to, and so I don't know. These are just going to be something that it's just going to be like a surprise when it hits. So be prepared. Trail your stops. But at, 10:30, 10:45 may be a place where you might see the bonds do something. Like if we think that the bonds are going to go down a little bit further, maybe we wait 15 minutes and then we can try and take it short. So there are certainly time periods, and some of the time periods that I would pay attention to, and I don't know if these are the best for the bonds or anything, but 8:30 Eastern time when all the news comes out, that's absolutely without question the best time for the bonds. Okay. And then we get, maybe 15 minutes after the E-mini opens, we often have a little bit of movement. And then during that counter trend time period, after the counter trend, then we can have a move. And then we get to the European close at 11:30 Eastern time. After the European close at 11:30 Eastern time, the amount of liquidity and volume in the market is significantly less. And that means that for you as a scalper, that your opportunity is less. So I would not be trading after 11:30 unless there is a specific driver. For instance, there is one of the 2 o'clock Eastern time FOMC minutes releases like we had yesterday, or there's an auction. Auction is usually a good reason for the bonds to rally a little bit. It's FOMC day. And then the last thing is that at 3 o'clock Eastern time, is it 3 o'clock Eastern time? Yeah, because they close at 4 Eastern time. Yeah, but the close is 4 Eastern time for equities, but the options pit for the Treasuries closes at 3, an hour before that. And so the highest volume for the day is almost always at that 3 o'clock time, right? Because that is when all of the options pit traders close their trades for the day. Next man posting about Ghislaine Maxwell again. Yes.
Gary Rich says on these jobs reports days, something always has to give. I will K up a special playlist and crank it up. The first song.
Oh, okay. I liked the you gave us a good song yesterday. I got a thing for you. I was like, wait, why did Gary send me this song?
What you're looking at?
Is he trying to tell me? But then I remembered the context you put it in. Oh man. So can I rant about something completely left field that I'm sure that you guys will fill me on? Oh my gosh. Was that not the best exit ever? This was, guys, can I just, it was good. That was one of the best. The way that I played that was perfect. I hit the market buy. Maybe I could have gotten a better price, but it never went against me. And then I came up, I got my exit, and look, it's coming back now almost like 5 points. And ooh, I mean, maybe you buy it here, but whatever, but I got a good exit. I'm really happy about it. Okay. The rant. I watched like one or two trading videos. Okay. Not trading videos like Axia or any of those, but trading videos like, Zip Trader or whoever that you got out there, right? And I think one of them was like, here are the 5 best technical analysis indicators to use. Oh, you should use RSI. You should use CCI. But okay, yeah, it was one of those videos, and I will go in and I'll play it and I'll turn it to 2 times speed because it's like I pretty much already know everything that you're saying, but I just want to know what you're saying to compare it to what I would be saying, sort of a thing, And yeah, so I did that. So now YouTube knows that I like to watch trading videos. Like, of course, it knows that for my speculator Seth account, but for my regular account that I had created before that was my primary account where all my subscriptions are for, non-trading type stuff. It didn't know that until then. So now it's giving me all these recommendations for trading videos. And oh my gosh, the crap that it recommends, it is so annoying. The most useless clickbait. It's like, X policy thing happened today. And I'm like, no shit, bro. Where were you? I guess for your regular day trader guy that's not paying attention or they're not really an active trader, that would be an interesting video. But for those of us that have been sitting here and watched it happen, it's kind of a stupid video. You know what I mean? Or, hey, here's all of the greatest technical analysis indicators. I made one about VWAP because VWAP wasn't well known. Cumulative delta wasn't well known. And that's order flow. But like, I would feel so dirty. I would feel so dirty if I made a video that was like, here are the best indicators. Use the CCI. You know what I mean? And I'm sitting there and I'm going through this and I'm like, oh my gosh, is this what my viewers have to deal with? Or is this the kind of ads and the kind of videos that get recommended to you guys? If it is, I am so sorry. Because there is some real junk out there on YouTube. So I know that was like totally left field, but that was my rant. Hey, you know what? I think that 47 would not be a bad place to buy. But since I got everything that I was looking for, and we're only talking about 4 points, I think I will refrain. Got like a bunch of stuff open here. Oh, it looks like there's some stuff on videos that I need to look at. Oh, I forgot that Jigsaw was having a thing. Are they having something next week as their big one, right? The one where Peter Davies tries to justify why he doesn't want to build the stuff that will show us stop orders. I just want to see it. Come on. Oh, and somebody. Oh, that's funny. This comment right here. What was it? He put it on the first. So it was on yesterday. Seth caused the sell-off at the end of the market today. That stall out sucked for longs like me. Luckily, I bailed with some profit about 30 minutes prior. Buyers dried up. I watched for sweeps. Oh, that's interesting.
Shred in the Nar says I've watched you plenty of times and never really asked any questions. Did you buy the extra vids in Jigsaw or learn elsewhere? Recently just purchased, but only the platform for
Ah,
500.
good question, Shredding Dinar. I should come over here and look at it. Because I'm not really aware. So here's the thing. When I bought Jigsaw, like 3 years ago, it was not anything like it is now. Like when I did it, they didn't have these packages where you get this professional and you get like the advanced training and everything like that. I think that when I bought it, that the basic training was the only thing that existed actually. And I think that at the time what I paid was, well, I don't remember anymore. I think it maybe was a little bit more than 579. Um, but yeah, these other ones, it's kind of depends. Excuse me, my mouse is a little dry and probably being really clicky. So with these other ones, it probably depends. Okay, so our there was this story. Peter Davies told us. The other in one of the webinars. So one guy that was doing well. Um, and he had been trading for a long time, and he wasn't doing well. And he's like, "What am I doing wrong? Should I take the institutional course?" Because this guy was willing to spend whatever it took to learn what he wanted to learn. He had taken the professional and he wanted to take the institutional. And Peter said, "No, you know what? You have a pretty good understanding of order flow. I really don't think that you need this institutional course. I think that you just need to practice what you're doing, and eventually, you will get better at it." And that's what the guy did. And he's had enough of a record, at least, that they did a webinar with them. So that one is interesting. That one probably, I guess the whole thing is that almost anything that you learn over in these ones, you probably can discover on your own. But of course, I haven't taken them. The one that's really interesting is the market maker. There's a lot of controversy over the market maker one because Gary Norden, he used to, he would mentor you, so you could pay like $3,000 for him to mentor you. And when I talked to the people that took the mentorship, they seemed to say that he had a very different approach from what they were looking at. But then since he's put this course out, some people are saying, there's nothing really all that special in it, and it's information that's already out there or that you would discover on your own. So I'm kind of like, I don't know. I really want to take the market maker course, but I don't know if I'm willing to drop $1,000 on it right now. Maybe someday when, if the channel was making more and we had a little bit more channel money to work with, we can do something like that and we can give a real review of it, and that would help people. And it's the same with the professional one. So it's like with the professional one, if you don't know anything about trading or order flow, then I bet this probably would be useful to you. Because the things that I'm finding or that I found were useful or that I discovered over the long run was like, okay, if today is a trend day up, what kind of action do you tend to see in the tape? You know what I mean? And if you can just be told all of that at the beginning instead of having to live through it and see it, that really helps, because then when you're living through it early, you know what to expect and you know what to look for, and then the experience that you get even more experience out of it. So overall, I would say it is not necessary to purchase the education, and most of you just do the independent. But if you have money to spend and you want to give yourself a little bit of a head start, I think that the professional or the market maker one could be useful to you. It just kind of depends. For somebody like me, this is probably not have as much value. Get what I mean? And if you really, really wanted to spend money on education, then you can go to Axia. That seems to be the most thorough thing. But at the end of the day, I'm just not a huge fan of education in the market space, because the best education is the market. And what the education can do for you is actually quite limited compared to what you're going to get from raw experience. So, you know, if you've got the money, then, you do what you think is going to give you a leg up, but you really don't need to get the education. And I've made videos about this, where, because I think that some people spend thousands of dollars on educations and it just goes down the drain. Because you got to remember, you can have all of this education and you'll probably still fall into the 95% of traders that don't make money. So I know that I went way into that one, but I've been thinking about Gary
Shred in the Nar
Norden's course
says
a
after
lot.
Ninja Lifetime, data fees etc. Dropping another few hundred to 1K on vids just seems a bit much for now. I trade, just
Totally.
somewhat new to order flow. And agreed, actual screen time is key.
See, yeah, you're totally on the right track. And yeah, a Ninja Lifetime license is good, and so you've got a nice platform. Yeah, but on the vids, and the other thing is, so if you're new to order flow, the basic videos that they give you, this free basic training, is really good. I mean, you're going to understand what order flow is and how to read it, right? They're not going to tell you everything about how the market tends to behave, but they're going to give you enough of a general concept to kind of know what's going on. I will tell you, I'll let me see if I can go into something else, kind of maybe just a thought that I had, but we used to talk about this all the time and we haven't lately. But when you want to look at markets, I kind of think of them as in two ways. Is there's going to be liquidity and range is what I'm going to call it. Okay. So we can kind of divvy this up into different quadrants, right? So when I say liquidity, what I mean is when you come over here onto the DOM, you can see all of the limit orders, right? Like in the 10-year Treasury, there's about 2,000, 2,200 at every level. Thanks for coming back, Lisa. We're lecturing here. So we have about 2,200 on every level of the DOM, right? So this is actually relatively light liquidity for the Treasury, okay? There was times I remember when there was almost 7,000 at every price. Back in before the big, what was that big volatility crash where the volatility was too low and we had a big spike up in volatility. I think that was February of 2008, or sorry, 2018. Really high liquidity. That's what we mean. Whereas when you're coming into news, for instance, you have really low liquidity. Okay. And then there's also things where sometimes you can have a lot of people looking to participate in the markets, but the market isn't actually able to move very much. And vice versa. And so based on what you're actually seeing, you'll kind of get different behavior, right? So if you have really low liquidity and extremely high range, which is kind of the market that we've been in right now, okay, then you will have these instances where you can just buy it as she goes, and they will continue and they'll go and go and go and go and go. And you often won't see a pullback until they get bored and they just kind of die down. That's how I would explain the current market. So I kind of know, hey, I knew with that last trade, because I saved myself a lot. I saved myself almost half of my profits by taking the profit up there, because I could just see that we were slowing down and that I'm getting pushback and there's some risk out there and it's time for me to take profits because there was a drop and whatever. And then kind of slowed down, they died off. Okay. when you get these high liquidity, high range days, then what you often get is really messy action up there where you can take it and you could take it as she goes and you're going to get a little bit, but when it comes after it goes, it's going to come back very quickly because there's so much liquidity pushing things around, but then there's so many other people taking it in with market orders. You're going to get a very much a two-way market, and those are very dangerous markets to trade. So if you're going to trade those ones, and those don't happen those are the most rare, but when those happen, ooh, you like take your profits quick, dude, like, because those ones are messy. All right. When you get into the high liquidity, low range markets, these can be really frustrating, but they can actually provide a lot of opportunities for market makers. Because what it means is that there's a lot of people coming into the market. And when money is coming into your market, that means that you have opportunity, but you don't get a lot of trend. So that means that like oftentimes you will get a move that it seems like it's totally breaking out and like, oh, it's been really range bound, but then all of a sudden they finally pass that spot that I want it to pass, but then it immediately reverses on you, right? And so it's better to go against the momentum in those kinds of markets, generally speaking. But basically the gist is that even though there's a lot of opportunity from taking really small scalps, there's also a lot of directional risk because you don't have as good of an idea of where we're going to go in the short term. Okay. Now, when you get into the low liquidity, low range markets, these are markets, frankly, I don't like trading them because then you'll get something where it's really slow. You'll get a breakout. You'll try going with the breakout, and they'll almost immediately screw you over. There's not a lot of people interested in playing that market, and so you as a retail trader become a much bigger target, right? So that's kind of a description. Those 4 kinds of markets, and really there are other factors that we could put into it as well. But those are the 4 things that I've found really kind of describe how order flow tends to be. And you can kind of go through and you can say, okay, when the market is like this, we have a really trending market and the liquidity is low to average, then hey, I can probably take some trades as she goes and hope that they trend. And when they do trend, they're going to go so far that it'll just work out for me, right? You can take those trades. And then everything beyond that is know the context. And this is the next thing that I would want to tell you. And this is my thing right now, is that the thing that I think will help you the most in terms of trying to beat the curve, not becoming the 95% of traders that lose money, is to study what is going on in the market. And I don't mean like, okay, like watch the replays of this video and watch the DOM and see what's going on and seeing if you can pick out patterns and things like that. I mean, you can do that sort of a thing too, but you got to remember that what we can see in the order flow is really useful for positioning and executing our trade. But the ability of it to tell us what's actually going to happen is quite limited, right? It really what it tells us is what is happening. And if you really understand what is happening, which is why are people trading this market the way that they are, then that's the thing that's really going to help you. So you want to pay attention to things like, what are the economic numbers? What was in the economic numbers? What is actually in that report? What does that report tell us? Why do different businesses care about what is in that report? Now is a really good time to look at the employment report, because this is a big report and there's so much stuff in there and there's so many different things that we can look at and pull out of it from a fundamental perspective, right? Right now, I don't know if I see any kind of, Kudlow is talking on television. I can see Florida reports a record 10,000 COVID-19 cases as Pence says White House supports some closures. Okay, so So that tells us, as we've been talking here, we got Florida coronavirus cases numbers, and that took out most of the gains that we've had since the regular session started, right? Now, because I knew the context of what the market was doing, okay, I can take the jobs report, and I know that report being good and the way that everybody is positioned and everything, that we're going to get a good move off of that. But then I also know that there's this risk of coronavirus cases out there, and so at some point I need to take my profits, or I need to be trailing it and be ready. So as soon as I saw any kind of little drop, I was like, okay, right? That's the thing that's going to get you. And you might not see the point of it all the time, but the more you can learn about what's actually driving the market, what do different types of participants do, what are the fundamental drivers behind what changes people's opinions and is driving that current market, where is money flowing to and from. So don't just look at the instrument that you're looking at, like specialize in an instrument, but look at everything else too and understand why everything else is moving. Those are the things that are going to give you an advantage over people, and I think, keep you profitable in the long term. So yes, that was a big, long blah, 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 but that was today's lecture. I hope that you guys enjoyed it. We come back on Monday. No. So what do we got here? We start here from Gary.
Sunday Driver says gold is up, money mouth face.
Is it back up?
Gary Rich
Ooh.
says next week, HK, GEAR, FREN, JPY, USA data. RBA rate deck, EU forecast might get interesting. Do your homework and limit the 3-day drunkenness. Gary Rich says good article, hope beats fear, works all the time. Gary Rich says 1K divided by 12 months is 83 per month, which is 2.76 a day. I'm sure one can find $3 a day or blow $3 a day. Shredin the Nar says I appreciate it, I'm glad your vid's saved because I'll go back and rewatch too lol. Gary Rich says well I guess paying for a college education is useless. Trading is an educational endeavor, pay up people.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not necessarily saying that it's bad if you pay for trading education, but I would not sit down and say, okay, you have limited funds, you spent some money on software and you're going to spend some money on your account, and now you should also spend $10,000 on education. I just don't think that that's the case. I don't think that the amount of value that you get out of the education is really worth it for a lot of people. If you have the money, if that capital doesn't have a lot of value to you because you have a lot of capital, then it becomes worth it. You get what I mean? But education is always kind of overpriced a little bit because you don't have to sell a whole lot of them. That's kind of the way the thing goes. But like this Gary Norton manual, I mean, I love everything that Gary Norton's put out. I very much base a lot of my philosophy and why I took things the way that I did because of things that Gary Norton had said in the materials that I've read from him. But do I think that if I read his new course that would be some huge revelation in it that would instantly make me a better trader? Probably not. So is it really worth it to spend $1,000 on his course? Well, I don't know what's in the course, so I can't really say, but the chances are that probably not. I don't know. But then the larger thing is that most of the education that is out there is
Shredin the Nar says at the end of the day if it helps you, and you make money on it, that's fine. But a lot of people can take in the same info from free vids and proper screen time.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the next thing, shredding is that you got to remember that this is like a long haul thing. Like if your calling in life is to trade, then cool, but just realize that it might take you years to really figure it out and get your feet under you. Okay, Florida reports. Oh no, did we just get another? That was Florida. Nashville to revert to phase
Gary
2
Rich
from
says
phase
Seth
3.
seriously stop this bromance love, it's screwing with your brain.
It's a bromance love.
Shredin the Nar says the classes
I
vids are
think
also
you're right, it
convenient,
is.
everything is in the same place.
I think you're right, Gary. I you know what is really going
Gary
on
Rich
here?
says love sucks and makes many do foolish stuff.
this is this is like the fear in my mind is like, okay, eventually I give in and I pay for Gary Norton's manual, and then I say, oh, I already know everything that's in this. Gary Norton totally put out this $1,000 course and it's not worth even $50. And I've been totally scammed. Like that's what, because I think that Gary Norton has definitely had some success in the industry and he's a good trader and he has some perspectives on things that I think will be really useful towards avoiding the problems that you get from the herd. Okay. One of them is very much that he's saying, technical analysis is not predictive. Doesn't mean it's useless. He thinks that it's useless, but doesn't mean he doesn't use technical analysis at all. But it's not predictive. Totally. If you can understand that right from the beginning, that's a big leg up, right? Because most people are trying to just trade purely off of technical analysis, and so like the edge that they're trying to pull out of it is like minuscule. You go nowhere with it, right? But yeah, I'm afraid that it's going to be like, what is that? Like there's the mentor person that you really respect, and then you find out that they were a fraud all along, sort of a thing. So is it messing with my head a little bit? Yeah, I think so. Because I really want to take that course. And I really want to know why some people are really think that it was good and some people don't. And most people haven't taken it. So a lot of people that haven't taken it have opinions too. And I can't, like, you can't sort it out. And I'm like hoping that somebody will sort it out for me. I don't know if that's going to happen. So usually I take a break like later, but I've been talking so much my mouth is dry and I need some water. So I'm going to take a quick water break, and I'll address your more comments when I come back. Okay. So we're below the open price now. We're still above where the news came out. The news basically came out at 31.26. Well, that's not that far away from here. Donald Trump trying to pump the jobs numbers, but the markets took profits. I don't know. This kind of feels to me like this is a place where they would want to make this like a trend all day sort of a thing, and it's not going to happen. Yeah, I don't know.
Gary Rich says, how many crappy Chinese products have we all bought? We don't yell at China. Buy a course or not. Just spend the money. If you fail, don't make a review video. You failed, not the course.
I mean, I would like to see more reviews over So if I bought Gary's course and I did a review, I think that it would be helpful to people because I'm a person that, okay, you know what my experience is, right? Like, I've been doing this for 3 years. I trade the treasuries. My specialty is in order flow in the queue. So you take somebody like me and I go and I read it. I'm, based off of what I think is new or what is not, is probably going to give other people a better idea of whether or not it's worth it to them than other people would, just because I'm more public. You know what I mean? So I think it would be useful, but it probably doesn't matter. I don't think that this was like a big thing to Gary. I think that he didn't have the time anymore to mentor people, and he wanted the information to be out there and available to people, and he was sick of people trying to you know scam people with the lure of his training materials. So they put a course together, and I'm sure that the price was probably, Peter just said, this is what we can charge for it, and and they took it from there. And they don't necessarily want like everybody to understand all of these things, so they made it expensive. And I think that's all there is to it. One of these things that like a lot of people are being like super critical about it. Even if I came in and did the course and was like, you know what, I knew most of what was in it, I wouldn't be like, I don't think I would be sitting there and saying, oh, Gary is like awful person, he should be ashamed for offering this course and things like that. I would just be straight, say, okay, well, this is what I got out of it. And well, I mean, not the specifics, but helped me in this way or not, didn't help me in this way. And these, if you have this level of experience and whatever. Anyways, Texas virus cases said to rise 7,382. This is unconfirmed from Walter Bloomberg. Forex Live retweeted, correct rumor relates to virus hospitalizations, not cases. Texas hospitalizations is said to rise to 7,382 versus 6,904 prior. That would be a rise of 400 hospitalizations. That would be significant, especially considering that they have already reached hospital capacity in certain areas in Texas. See why the market would be a little concerned about that. Also, seeing Kudlow says next direct checks need to be more targeted. Okay. Well, yeah, so we don't need to give everybody money because we've already pumped the stock market up high enough. Okay. Merkel says Europe is in the hardest situation it has been in its history. Probably not in the whole history of Europe, but okay, Merkel. So they recovered the open. They're kind of, I mean, they did turn up, and the trend is kind of up, but it's like just right there at the up, and still don't know what's going to happen. And we haven't actually gotten the Texas cases out. Well, if the Texas cases were able to cancel out the jobs number, that would be super significant. But here's something from the Marketeer talking a little bit about what Gary was talking about earlier with VIX term structure collapsing. So they're saying, compared to that Thursday, which one is which? Oh, this is the volatility now. So this one is the current one. Oh, wow, yeah. But this whole short end really came down. You're still expecting a lot of volatility in the fall, but Alicia Smith tweets, new Florida coronavirus numbers are out. There was a new record high in daily cases with 10,109 new cases detected yesterday. However, this high number is partly due to more testing as positive percentage of tests was slightly lower than the past 2 days. About 70,000 people were tested. Yeah, so at this point, new cases is not as useful of a metric, is it? Let's see here. Well, there's a good dip there, but hey, maybe they'll buy this one. I don't know. Thing is I think there's still a little bit of coronavirus volatility. What is the word? Risk. There's a lot of volatility. There's a lot of coronavirus risk out there still. But once all that's passed, this could still just buy up, you know? Hmm. Still thinking back on the sell was my, worked out perfectly that time. I'm still really happy about it.
Sunday Driver says, aren't most of those courses just material that you most likely still need to learn on your own by doing?
Gary Rich says you pay 30 to 40K for a car, can't build one for less. 3K is cheap if you expense it over 12 or 24 months. People are lazy with time. Dedication takes endless hours of time. Don't be lazy or cheap.
Well, so I mean, there's two parts to it, right? Sunday. Part one is that the vast majority of education sources out there are complete nonsense. I mean, there really are people out there offering $10,000 educations that won't teach you a darned thing, and that's quite common. And you will go out there and read reviews of them and find out from people that have taken the course that the course was useless. So that's the first thing, is that you've always just got to be really super skeptical about education. But then the second half of it is that even if it is a good education course, yeah, there could be, oh man, look at that. Even if it is a good education course, there could be it can only help you so much, right? The course is not going to make you profitable.
Sunday Driver says $65 from Gary Rich. Does that mean Gary Rich gave you $65?
Yes, it does. He didn't do that today. That was from a couple of months ago, actually, I think. But Gary has been very generous. I really appreciate it, Gary, by the way. But I keep a, like the, I could go through and clean it out, but every time somebody donates, then it goes down into the bottom. And the message that you put in there sticks too. So, okay, they're going to go for 26. Oh, come on. Ooh, this could be so much fun if they get below 31.26. It's funny. I could have reversed when I got out. I really, um, this whole move down has been quite surprising. I mean, part of my plan was that, yeah, coronavirus numbers would push us down, but not like this. Not like this. Man. if they take out 2 more points, man. Oh man, I'm really. I mean, after a move like that, it would it would really be something else if they just stopped short of it. But if they go for it, man, I'm really excited to see what the tape shows. Come on. Well, there's some absorption there. Let's come over here and look at our footprint in the E-mini. Oh, okay. So there was some pretty significant unwinding up at 3150 area. And then again at 3137. And now we're pushing down. So in order for us to bounce here and make it a major low, that it would probably need to spend a lot more time and a lot more volume. Hong Kong government says the Liberate Hong Kong slogan violates new law. I don't even want to think about this. The Hong Kong thing. I'm so bitterly disappointed in how that has turned out. Okay, so what is Futures Trader 71 saying? ESF is playing out scenario 1 from the pre-open trader bite today nicely. The main issue for traders is always, where do I get in and how do I hold? That's a whole different conversation.
Sunday Driver says the Maxwell arrest is interesting. Never would have happened if Clinton was POTUS. Score 1 for Trump. Any takers on how long it is before she has a didn't kill herself suicide?
I mean, I'm just so surprised that it's taken this long, you know what I mean? But hopefully we get some answers, I hope that the Maxwell thing ends up giving us a little bit better closure than Epstein killing himself did, Rabobank, every member of Congress is now open to arrest if they visit Hong Kong. Really? White House Economic Advisor Kudlow, all is not solved on unemployment. There are too many people on jobless rolls. Okay. Larry, you're not doing very good with your cheerleading here. You know what? With the president having a press conference and everything else about how great the jobs numbers were, this would be really, really embarrassing. Should I say? Is that the right word? I'm always trying to be articulate, guys. I don't know if I do a good job. If that did, but still. Ooh, I want them to take it though so badly. I don't have a position on, but I just want it to happen. Come on. Just let it go. Let them do it. Von der Leyden, we want a Brexit deal, but not at every price. Well, that's not a positive thing either. Well, a little bit of absorption there. They're not going for the news price yet. There's always going to be some support there. So, not surprised that it's hanging out here. Doesn't mean that it's going to go down or that it's not. I think the fundamental backdrop certainly at the moment suggests that we could. And I don't know if there's more. Well, we haven't heard from Arizona, so there could still be some coronavirus risks lurking out there. Oh, do it. Yes. Oh, one tick. Come on. You got a whole 5 more ticks to go, buddy.
Sunday Driver says I think it took a while because she has the goods on a lot of swamp creatures. They threw up a lot of interference. But Trump cut through it all. Clinton would have protected Maxwell.
I don't know if Trump has anything to do with it or not. Bloomberg dollar index erases loss as U.S. stocks pair gains. The move, I tell you what, the move in gold, I think if anybody, those gold traders got to be pissed. Yeah. Dumps on them, they lose a ton, and then it goes right back up. Yeah, I bet there's some gold traders that are frustrated because this kind of move in equities. Of course, I got a good exit, but this is the kind of move usually screws me over. Usually, I'll make a ton of money, and then it'll come all the way back, and I'll lose it all. Very, very rare that I will go through and sell it and make it all the way on the way down too. There was no fundamental news at the top that would have told me to have started selling it. Well, they touched a new low. It's bouncing off of it. They haven't touched 26 yet. Pompeo, corrupt Iranian leaders have condoned murder for 40 years. It's like they're just coming in and doing everything they can to hurt the market, but the market doesn't care at the moment. Kudlow says it may recycle leftover PPP funds in the next relief bill. Okay. There's a little bit of liquidity there in the micros at 31.2675. That's interesting. They're pushing for a new low.
Sunday
again.
Driver says I've been buying and holding gold for a few years. That's the play, and I think gold will run to $5,000.
$5,000, really? Wow. I wonder where you get a number like that. Seems like it's an okay investment on a longer term horizon, at least probably for the next year or two. I got to tell you, I remember in 2008. Everybody wanted in on the gold trade, and I remember people saying some of the same things, and it kind of fizzled out. And the problem with the trade like that, and it's kind of like what's happening in Bitcoin, is that people will hold out for a really, really long time, but eventually they bail, and it gets ugly. And there's a certain point at which you get this sort of here it goes up. Okay, cool. Okay, maybe it'll go higher. And it doesn't. It just kind of goes like this. Really slow. And then finally, but somebody's, it's been so long and the economy's going well, and somebody says, well, crap, that didn't work. That's the problem with that trade. For now, though, long-term time horizon looks good. Kudlow says he doesn't buy that the economy will have to shut down again. Some people are already shutting down again, so.
RJ Wheels says Maxwell. Can't see a full trial. Too much would come out.
You think so? I don't know. I mean, she's going to, at the very least, tell us about Prince Andrew, no? It must be in relation to that, huh? I bet you that's why it took so long, because it took so long for them to even get in on the, is it Prince Andrew? Is that his name? And now that they're charging him, now Maxwell is involved, and now that's why it's happening. I bet you that's what the deal is. Merkel responds to coronavirus. Let me try that again. Merkel says response to coronavirus crisis must be
Sunday
massive.
Says gold fizzled because everyone believed the Fed when they said QE would never be done again and they would reduce their balance sheet.
Do it.
Didn't
yes.
happen. Just the opposite. Now, no one believes the Fed.
I don't know if I agree with that. Everybody believed the Fed when they said QE would never be done again and they would reduce their balance sheet. It didn't happen. Just the opposite. Now no one believes the Fed. Oh, I don't know about that take, Sunday. I guess it's a legitimate take, but I always just took it from the perspective of the economy recovered and people wanted to buy into equities, and why would you be stuck in gold that's going nowhere when everybody's buying equities? And it's the same thing over here. I mean, if equities continue to move up, you will get gold will move up a lot for the short term because everybody is so skeptical of what's going on in equities. But eventually, they give up. But if equities turn back down around and down, and they start closing things down, and things get all crazy, and I still think there's a really good chance that they could get crazy because I don't know. After a day or two ago, it seemed like that thesis was kind of feeling really weak. Now today, it's feeling really
RJ
strong
Wheels
again.
says maybe deal has been struck.
I think that if we really need to have $1,000 pumped into the economy, then for the long term health of the market, you kind of almost have to have a second wave. You know what I mean? And then people would be all over the gold thing, right? But again, it's a lot of it is opportunity. A lot of the driver there is the opportunity cost. And I think that that's why gold fizzled out the first time was opportunity cost. And it's really, I'm just saying, I've been my whole adult life, because really 2008 is like in my mind the start of my adult life. It's been like I've heard gold bulls.
Sunday Driver says if Dems win and AOC's vision of MMT is implemented, I think gold will run to $10,000. At least.
Well, that might be true. But if Joe Biden was elected, I don't know if that would lead to MMT. In fact, I think it would be very doubtful. Because you still got to get your candidates through, and the Republicans will still try and filibuster everything. And even some Democrats are going to be against that. Okay, so we did have the stop run through the news price. Was a little underwhelming, actually, to be honest. I mean, it was okay. It was okay, don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like the greatest stop run ever like I thought it was going to be. I overhyped that. I'm sorry, guys. I overhyped that. I really did. By the way, Bitcoin taking a
RJ
hit.
Wheels says too bad you're selling at 5,000.
5,000. Oh. You're saying you said 5,000 before, now you're saying 10,000 if MMT. Wow. The other thing is that if they did implement MMT, and it would go south so quickly, that I think that they would back off. Unless like AOC was actually president, or Bernie Sanders, you'd have to have like a real ideologue in there, which Joe Biden is not. Kudlow says U.S. very engaged on China trade deal. Geoff Berman was fired 2 weeks ago. He was the SDNY prosecutor who was stonewalling the Epstein case. Want to know what other case he buried? The Wiener laptop case. Oh, this today is like a treasure trove for conspiracy theorists, guys. Oh man, they're gonna just be going wild with this stuff today. Oh, I've never heard that before. Jeffrey Bird, that's the first time I've ever heard that name, I think. Where are my bonds at? The top of the range. That's concerning. Well, actually, it's good for me. I would like the interest rates to stay low if we could for another week or two. They sent my loan to underwriting. What I have in physical is measured in pounds. I have as much physical precious metals as I weigh in. Oh my gosh. That's a lot of money in gold, dude. You shouldn't be telling me. Don't talk about this again Sunday. We're not going to talk about that again. Nothing happened. Don't worry, guys. We're just talking about how they pushed below 31.26 and like quickly reversed again. And maybe they push down. If they push the new low again, then maybe then we get the stop run of total chaos that I was getting all excited for. Hey, by the way, what's the downside target if we're gonna go for downside target? Downside target 31.15. 31.15. $31.69. Okay, well, that's a good sell. You can see a little bit of liquidity holding it there around 27-ish. Done something that I don't have the chirp. Let's add the chirp. Chirp dot wave. Go. Yay. Yeah, that one didn't do it either. By the way, throughout all of this, Bitcoin has also been getting a pretty decent sell. They're now pushing 9,000. Touched another new low and bounced again. They buying this dip. How much? How much? How much? Still only like the maximum 3,000 per point. Or handle, rather. Getting pretty consistent clicking here. Okay. Getting a little dramatic here. Oof. Almost thought they were going to do it right there, but crypto is such a dog. I'm tired of holding crypto. Andrew Jackson statue destroyer arrested. Hey, good deal. I mean, Andrew Jackson was a racist piece of crap, but he was also a great president. $10 yeah. See, I don't know if he'll actually get 10 years. They'll try for it, for sure. I'll be interested to see how much this protester that tried to shoot a guy in Provo will get. Attempted murder, how much is that? Hmm. Okay. Touching the lows. Still clicking around a lot. It seems like a lot of people are fighting it, so I think at some point we're going to get a stop run. Hmm. So I'm not 100% sure here, but it feels to me like some bulls are trying to buy the dip and are fighting something that they cannot fight. Like now that we're below the price from the jobs numbers, like all bets are off. You got all these people that are long that are getting screwed over here. You try and hold on all you want, like they're gonna have to puke. I would not be fighting this. You would need you would need you would need an imbalance on the other side to be able to buy this, and the 31.15 is where they're gonna try and get it to. So this is buying it here isn't the smartest thing. I don't think. Who knows? Maybe it bounces there and proves me wrong. It could do anything, but I at the moment it looks to me like buyers trying to hold it. Yeah, Bitcoin looks ugly.
RJ Wheel says 10 years.
Sunday Driver says Andrew Jackson statue destroyer arrested. Sunday Driver says crypto is such a dog. I'm tired of holding crypto.
RJ Wheel says historical context.
Sunday Driver says the way things are going, I think racism is going to be en vogue again.
Nah.
RJ Wheel says finally some sanity about art. Mad Men is not removing blackface scene or episode.
Sunday Driver says lol. At RJ Wheel, what I have in physical is measured in pounds. I have as much physical precious metals as I weigh in pounds. That, I'm not selling. It's my security.
Yeah, we don't need to read those anymore. Historical context. I am very, the thing that just bothers me is like tearing down a statue, regardless of whether it's historical or the person was a piece of shit or should be there or not. If you want to get rid of it, man, go to the city council. Like, there's a way that we do things in society, and pushing this whole like we should just, do what we want with mob violence is a very negative thing for society, and I cannot support. Good morning, Ace. So how did you fare out today, man? I did amazing. I took when the news came out, I just hit market buy and I got out almost exactly at the top. Tenzin, as people of color, I hope we have racism behind us. I'm just tired of white bashing too. Oh, Tenzin, this is like, I totally feel you. I see it on Reddit and it super bothers me. Not because it's, I mean, I get the racial undertones. I'm opposed to racial discrimination of any kind, but more so, it's just like you can't treat fellow humans like that and expect to have a productive society. You know what I mean? Take down all the statues right away. We should be our own heroes. All the statues. Nice. The room did okay this morning. Good, because I'm sure that some people got ripped a new one from this sell-off. Man, I mean, there's no way when I took my profits up at the top, there's no way that I would have thought that we would go all the way back to the news price and below. You know. President of EU Commission von der Leyen, if the EU takes a confident, united position, it will have a long-term effect on China. It has a good point. If China just was decided to come along with the United States, then maybe China would stop being so evil. Jeff Bezos' net worth has smashed through its previous peak even as he relinquished a quarter of his stake in Amazon as part of a divorce settlement last year. Wow. Wow. Compounding interest, guys. Whoa. I wish I was more long term. Who knew it would get back to pre-news levels? Right? Yeah, this is insane. Well, I knew the reason that I got out of my long was that I was expecting that coronavirus numbers would come out, and we know that they tend to be worse in the later half of the week, and so the market has been reacting to this, and doesn't look like the market is very efficient at this yet. So we knew that the bad headlines were going to come out and they were going to push us down. I just thought that it was going to be like, okay, the bad headlines come out, and then like the previous 2 days, they would just ignore it and move on. And I'm not quite sure what it was that I guess part of it was that the good news that we had wasn't that good. So it was good, but it wasn't like super amazing like last time. So there was probably going to be a distribution somewhere, and there's probably going to be people unbalanced somewhere. But now you kind of got this weird thing going on. They didn't make it to the volatility target. The volatility target would have been 31.15, and we never saw the run. Like I wanted to see a stop run there below 31.26, and there was definitely a squeeze, but never the real like goodish. So I believe that we could see another turn down to go lower. Well, let's come in here and take a look at a couple of things. So when we came in here at the beginning, we were 118K. After moving up, well, we started at 20K, then we're 118K. So almost 100K up. And then again, after that, 273K. Well, that's the total volume. We should be looking at cumulative delta. So we were at 10, and then cumulative delta was 17, and then it held at 17, and then we went to 14. So we still have about 4,000 contracts that did not puke into the low, although this is all just, you can't really do the math like that because somebody could buy on a market order and get out with a limit order or something like that. But it suggests that there could be more contracts to puke if we push lower again. Big if. But I mean, that was a pretty good pullback that time. That's probably going to give a lot of bulls some confidence in the way that they've been buying the dip and everything. That could be enough to do it. I don't know. Multiple output about the Jazine Maxwell thing. Multiple outlets report 6 charges, including participating in the sexual abuse of minor victims. Andrew Cuomo, New York numbers. 875 positive tests. Total hospitalizations fell to 878. Fatalities, 10 yesterday. You know, we should come over to our dashboard. It's a pretty good bull run. So some of the ones that are up at the top are the ones that don't really have a whole lot going, but California up 0.24%. So we don't really necessarily have numbers from a lot of these states, do we? Like Florida. I don't think that we have the Florida number, right? We had the Texas number. Well, it's not reflected in there, so this is not that useful. The biggest gainer among major commodities may come as a surprise. Uranium, which is used as fuel for nuclear reactors, has seen prices climb 30% this year. Should have bought uranium stocks. Remember we were talking about Energy Man a couple of weeks ago, like a month or two ago? Nicholas Taleb, Michael Levitt, is banking on his Nobel in chemistry to apply ordered differential equations on a stochastic time series. By definition, a stochastic time series is nowhere differentiable except for via a smoothing function, which is circular. This crackpot caters to right-wing conspiracies. I think that he's kind of leftist. Interesting. Let's see here. What were you? I missed a couple of comments here. Close examination shows that we are all assholes. Yeah, that's true. We all have our moments. MLK statues should all come down because he was a plagiarist and participated, at least watched a woman get raped. What? Really? No. I don't believe you. No, I do believe you. Oh, that's crazy. Who's calling me? Nobody I know. I'm going to dye my dog yellow. Supporting BLM. Got to find a dirty, nasty, mean feminist for wife. Anyone? Well, I hear Portland has a... or Seattle. Science on science. Nerds beating up on each other. Where is Stephen Hawking's? No, I think he's right, though. I'm totally with Nassim Taleb. People are trying to do these math on these models. Like, here's what happens is you come down and you say, oh, look, guys, it's a line. Let's do something to the line. Let's differentiate it. Okay. It's going up. Cool. That's really useful for predicting coronavirus numbers. Not. There's no impact. They're trying to misapply the math. I think he's right. Totally understand. I think I understand what he's saying. Because I see people do it with technical analysis all the time. It's like, okay, cool. Like if you take all of these things and divide them and do all this math, then it will tell you the future price of the S&P 500. No, it won't. It doesn't. Can't. The model in and of itself is, well, what you get from prices is flawed to begin with, and then your model is going to be flawed, and then the situation changes. It's useless. Okay, we're getting a downturn again. They try and hold the news price again. What's this? Some new game coming out. Some hyperspace. Ubisoft will tease a new game codenamed Prisma Dimensions, which is actually a new AAA multiplayer fast-paced first-person shooter battle royale from Ubisoft named Hyperscape. It will be revealed in 1 hour. Ooh, hey, you know what? That's cool because I would like a new game to play. Okay. They're still holding the 26. So we put right here news so that I can find it more easily. Donald Trump tweeting 4.8 million jobs added to the U.S. economy. Listen, Donnie, if you're listening to me, Donald Trump, I'm talking to you, Donald Trump, if you're listening. The thing that is going to get you reelected right now is not how many jobs you added after the coronavirus. I think that we understand that there's been a recession, and we also understand that there tends to be a recovery after the recession, and you might not get full credit for all of those jobs. The thing that is going to matter to your reelection the most is how you responded to the coronavirus conflict and how you respond to Black Lives Matters. I know that it seems like coronavirus should be the thing that is super important, but it's not, because it's not having the same kind of emotional impact on people that like say Black Lives Matters does. And so how you respond and how you make people feel about Black Lives Matters is going to be a bigger part of whether or not you get reelected. And of course, we want people to feel safe, and the whole law and order take is absolutely the right take. Okay. People need to be safe, and we need to have law and order. Okay. But we also need all of those people that are concerned about racial division in the country. We also need to put their fears at ease. And you're not doing that. And that's why you're down in the polls right now. And all you care about is the jobs, which I get it. The jobs is important, but it's not the end all be all of everything. So that's my message to you, Mr. Trump. Someone said Hawkins is doing background vocals on this song. I feel it. How has working from home been? It's been pretty good. Like, being able to be home and take care of my son whenever has been great. I think that I got to spend more time with my infant than most men do. So I think it's been pretty great. Do you want to be able to work for GS from home, or are you looking forward to getting back in the office? Well, I used to work for Goma. I work for a healthcare company, a Medicare exchange. And I have no interest in going back to the office. Now that I've kicked the kids into the basement, I think that this whole thing is just fine. The only downside is that I don't eat as well as I did when I was going out for lunch every day. But it's cheaper, so. Hey, that's a pretty impressive bull run. Okay, well, I didn't see enough trade there at 31.30 to be 100% sure how this works out. But that was pretty encouraging for the bull side. And I do think, like the bulls are going to try and buy the dip. But there's also, these targets. And at this point, I think we're much more likely to touch 31.15 than we are to touch 31.69. So I think that I would have to still be leaning short if we can find a good spot. Spot the difference. Arizona new coronavirus cases today compared to last Friday, up 9.1% versus Florida, up 100%. One of these states has actually done something. Oh, that's interesting. Atom Shift's top aides were briefed on Russia's bounty subsidies in February in Afghanistan. Schiff didn't think it was significant enough to alert colleagues on intel committees, held no hearings, told no one, did nothing. Yeah, that story's gonna die. I don't see that one going anywhere. Well, it's 9:30. E-Trader says still trading. Well, I haven't taken any. I only took one trade today. Yay, $100. Super, super happy about that trade. Look. Oh, it did go 9 against me? Oh, that's okay. That's okay. Clean. It doesn't get better than that, man. Unless you reversed and went short. But I guess if you had taken it short, that actually would have been a better trade. But I don't know. Well, I would love to keep talking to you guys. Good discussion today. I hope I didn't say anything too dumb. Yeah, going to come back and I think we're okay. Of course, things can always be taken out of context, but I tried to give you guys the full thing, and I think we're okay. Yeah, again, 31.15 seems to be the downside target. I think they could get there still. What strategy are you doing? You look pretty relaxed. Oh, that's because I already made my money, man. Go back and watch the video when I took it. I was actually pretty nervous. No, I wasn't pretty nervous about it. I knew what was going to happen. Here's the thing. Listen, here's my strategy. I used to, in my intro video, I say my strategy is buy it and hope that you got a good spot. No, that's not my strategy anymore. My strategy now is know where it's going to go and hope that you got a good spot. That's the strategy now, right? When no, it wasn't live. In fact, it wasn't even the serious account, the serious demo account. It was the experimental account. I really don't think that I'm gonna trade the live account until like August or September, because I know that there's gonna be some opportunity then. And as crazy as things seem right now, I think that time is actually going to be more interesting and better trading for me. And I'll have a little bit more built up, so I won't be as nervous about taking the trades. And I'll have developed my strategy a little better, because I think that what we're doing right now was working really, really well. The reason that you can be confident about a trade like that is because if it's based off of a piece of news or a piece of fundamentals, and you have a good idea of what the positioning in the market is and the amount that it can actually go, you can be relatively accurate. Like I can take a trade and I can say, okay, I think you could take it short right now. I don't think that here is the best spot, but yeah, you probably could take it short here, because I think in the end we're going to touch 31.15. I know where it's going to go. This one is maybe a little bit different. Maybe we don't end up getting anywhere. By the way, where's the fix? 26. Oh yeah, I said that it could be 26, and it sure was almost 25. But it's come back up. Well, anyways, I shouldn't be talking like I'm for sure it's going to go to 31.15. I'm not 100% sure. And at the moment, if I hadn't taken any trades, and the later on it goes, like after 9:30, you don't necessarily want to take trades, right? But if some other headline comes in that's bad, then I would totally take it down to 31.15, right? Because you're doing it on fundamentals. If I got fundamentals and I know it's a fundamental that's going to move the market and I'm able to get a good spot, then, and I know where it's going to go to, like, you can be really confident with that kind of a trade, right? Because you're not just picking up noise. So that's why it's been working. Anyways, I'm yapping. I enjoy talking too much. You guys got me talking. We had way too much fun today. Good day. Hope you guys have a good weekend, 4th of July. Light a lot of fireworks. Don't kill yourselves. I will see you guys on Monday. And in the meantime, stay profitable, friends.